Well, hello, you knuckleheads. It's I, Jaffe. I am here today with my pal Victor Lucas. We're going to bring him on in just a couple of seconds. It's nice to see you. I want to let you know the schedule, the plan. So we are going to be talking, of course, about the big news of the day, the Switch 2 reveal, such as it is. such as it is. And then after that, we're going to look into a little bit of a couple breaking news stories, and then we're going to dive into a deep dive of what I believe I'm correct in saying is Good Sir Victor's game of the year. It is absolutely my game of the year, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. We'll be deep diving spoilers, but we'll let you know when that's about to kick off. In the meantime, the chat is live towards the end of the stream. Victor will be taking your calls if you have something you want to say to the fella. Talk about Indy, talk about the Switch, kind of whatever you want. But let's bring him on to the show. I made up a little song for him before I bring him out. This is a song I wrote specifically for Victor Lucas. Here it goes. One day I was walking and I saw Victor Lucas and I had a heart on and I said, that doesn't make sense. You're not gay, but it's Victor. Yay. Victor Lucas.
Good Lord.
I'm
terrified and also flattered.
I should have been your Tommy Tallarico all those years. We would have been canceled so fucking goddamn fast.
Oh, Tommy tried.
Yeah, right. There you go. There you go. Did you see? I'm sure you did. That Tommy Tallarico is now like the worldwide middleweight backgammon champion. Yeah. What?
I'll tell you, that guy, when he puts his mind to stuff, he is just an unstoppable force, man. I saw it again and again and again and again. You know, he's
yes,
he is a hardworking dude. He really,
I know.
He puts his head down and he goes, "Okay, I'm going to go do it."
Yeah, he went. You know, I'll tell you, I was so disappointed in seeing how people, because when you have somebody like that, and we're not here to talk about Tommy. It just came to my mind when I was saying crazy things and going, they never let me on TV. So my brain works.
I put you on TV. What are you talking about? I love putting you on TV.
It was edited though. It was heavily edited. I would imagine.
No, man, you were good. You were one of absolutely. You're one of the developers that brought it home for us. That really kind of showed us that people are animated and they've got great things to talk about. They're incredibly intelligent. They're passionate. Yeah. They know what to bring to TV, even if they've never done it before.
Well,
Chris Taylor was
helps.
There. Did cocaine help? Yeah,
cocaine helps quite a bit. It's still to this day. Now they call it Adderall, but it's cocaine. Wink. But yeah,
is that true?
Yeah,
there's cocaine in Adderall.
Well, it's not that the cocaine is in it, but it is a amphetamine. It is speed basically, and so.
Oh my God.
If you, and I've never actually tried proper cocaine, right? So I've never,
Me neither.
Right. So I don't know, but I know that like coffee or whenever someone else will take Ritalin or Adderall that doesn't have ADD. And they will be like, oh my God. But for me, it actually kind of helps me focus and calm down. So I don't know how I would actually do on the real cocaine, but I think it'll be an interesting journey one day. But first, DMT, just baby steps.
Maybe not save that one for later.
That's right.
Maybe not.
It's like, Mr.
Save
Jaffe,
that trip.
You told us to tell you when we think you're going to pass away in hospice. You got about 4 hours. Time to break out the Colombian March. Okay, bring it in. It's what's in his will. But I mean. Somebody said, Salvador writes, Jaffe did cocaine through an enema. No, I've never done cocaine. But you know what? I bet there are people who have, oh God, Victor, you've stepped in it, baby.
I cannot believe how we've started the show.
Because I was just going to think,
there's only one David Jaffe show.
There are people out there that have basically sniffed cocaine out of somebody's butthole.
Okay.
Right? And I have to assume.
Happy New Year, Dave.
Right? And I have to assume that if it's in that place, you're also getting the benefit of the cocaine and the sniff. Anyway, the point is.
All right.
Finish the Tommy Tallarico story, which is basically, I was just very disappointed. And I didn't follow it with any, fine tooth comb. So I don't want to get into the weeds with it or anything, but I was just like, yep, you're right. The guy is so passionate and so driven. And that's the Tommy I saw with his latest adventure. And I was just like, not the backgammon, but the Amico. And I was just like, guys, he's fucking out there hustling and trying, and sometimes it's going to work and sometimes it's not. And at least he fucking stepped up to the plate. And you guys are just throwing shit from the peanut gallery. Piss me off.
Well, we know him and we've known him forever. And, you know, like the Fuhrer is unassailable. And people can get to know Tommy every week on our classic episodes, by the way. And
look at you, so professional.
I didn't mean to
you
that
should
up, but
no, tell people.
Really, like, I watch it every week, and I've sent him some pictures and some quotes that he's put into the show, and it's like, Jesus, you are fantastic on this show. He just was so funny and goofy and threw himself at everything, and it was not always easy to work with because that energy was the same.
I
whether
know
we were rolling or not, but he always brought some, and it makes it so much more interesting.
People say the same thing about me. I mean, it's not in terms of being the hustler Tommy is, but in terms of like, it's like Jaffe's great, but you gotta know what you're getting into with this guy. Because
I better explain this because it's going to look terrible.
Oh, it looks like you're drinking diarrhea water.
It's gross.
It's disgusting looking.
It's very healthy. It has cayenne pepper and lemon juice and apple cider vinegar and a lot of water, and it's healthy. And I like it now. I'm very weird, but it tastes pretty good.
But what's the matter with you? I mean, what brought you to that place in your life that you would say, I'm into this? I mean, seriously, what?
We're just taking care of ourselves. Our family is just taking care of ourselves. We're trying to drink and eat healthy stuff. That's all. It's healthy. It's good for you.
This toilet water, Victor?
No,
is that all you guys can afford in Canada? Is that what happens with the healthcare? You get healthcare for free, but you got to drink the shit out of the toilet. I understand.
It's healthy at all costs. Is what
Sure it is. Sure it is.
But it looks really weird, and I apologize.
Yeah, your wife is watching right now. You're just like, oh God, thank God she knows. Okay, yes, I'm drinking it, honey. See, I did. Oh God, fucking beer under the desk. Anyway, I want to let you know though, we've talked about toilet water, we've talked about buttholes and all that, and cocaine. Craig Derrick, who is the executive producer and award-winning game maker from Lucasfilm Games, he's watching right now, right?
And Craig's on. Awesome.
Yeah, but what's funny is I reached out to him like last week and I said, hey, you want to come on the show? Because I love Star Wars Outlaws, which he oversaw. I loved Indiana Jones, which of course he oversaw at Lucasfilm. And it stopped me for a minute to go, wait, he works for Disney. And so he wrote me and he's like, I can run it by Disney PR, I guess, kind of, sort of. I'm like, no, don't even worry about it. Because, Craig, you made the right call. We're talking cocaine and buttholes. Come on, man.
I'll try to rep the game as best I can.
No, I will. No, the game is delightful, and we will get to that in just a little bit. But let's talk about. There's two really big news stories today, but let's get to the biggest news story, which is the Switch 2. I know you've put a video up about it. You were saying
just posted. Yep.
And I saw your video. Yeah, and I saw your video the other day where you were talking about this really interesting idea of taking with the USB-C ports and taking the old Switch and mounting it and making like a 3DS and stuff. But give me your thoughts, just your knee-jerk reaction on what we saw today with the Switch 2.
It seemed like Nintendo was a bit angry with all of us. And they put the trailer out without the fanfare that they would normally attempt to kind of build for the trailer, but they know we've seen everything already. So the trailer was revealed, but everything has been spoiled. And so that's the way that the trailer came off. Like I think it would have been a very nice surprise if this had been maybe the first week of January before, like even during CES or something. Maybe they didn't want it to be during CES, but I think if this sort of came out just before all of this Genki BS and all these people trying to basically spoil the fun of it. And they did. I mean, kudos to everybody that works so hard to leak every fucking thing. I mean, that's exactly what happens it's a deflating moment. It's like, oh, great. So that's not, we can't have joy around that today because everybody's got a cynical comment about it. We've seen everything already, and it's exactly what you expect. But, when you think about the idea of the Switch 2, why would Nintendo go in a different direction? Why would they come out with a Wii U version of the Switch 2? Why wouldn't they, as a business that has learned everything there is to know about how to reach people through handheld devices and consoles at this point, they they struck gold with the Switch. They changed the whole industry. Why wouldn't they stay on that tack? You know what?
Well, I think
they did do it. I mean, they stayed on. They just basically iterated, and they gave us a better version of what is already great. Well, they haven't given it to us yet, but that's what it looks like it is. I did a video 2 years ago saying that we should call this the Switch 2. That Nintendo should call it the Switch 2, because consumers, we're in the foxhole. We're watching every damn thing that comes out from everybody, and we've got an opinion because this is our obsession. We talk about this nonstop.
Yeah.
Regular human beings don't have the time to focus on all of these little tiny details. I was telling parents today, because I was excited about this after I dropped my kid off at school, that the Switch 2 was announced, and their faces lit up, and the little kids that they were walking with were turning around going, how does that guy know about Switch 2?
Cool. That's awesome.
So it was a really profound moment. It's like most people are too damn busy to know. And so Nintendo's learned that the hard way. Super Nintendo did not hit the NES sales.
Right.
The N64, and I think it's because these things have these different brands, and it's hard for people to...
I mean, the Wii U they've learned their lesson with, right? With the naming. I don't know why Microsoft seems to be unable to learn that lesson, but going from the Wii to the Wii U, which, again, I'm no hater. I enjoyed the Wii U. There were some really great games on the Wii U. And... But I was like, why are you calling it that? Just like when Microsoft came out and did Microsoft Series S and X. And what are you guys doing? But anyway, I agree. And that's delightful to hear that there were people excited, because, I mean, my take on it was I was pretty underwhelmed by it. Now, part of it was they had kind of seeded the ground and said, we're not going to show a lot of games or gamayplay. Yeah. And so in that, it's they
didn't say that. We found out. Yeah, somebody leaked that.
Right.
They didn't even have the chance to say anything about this, even the 2 USB-Cs everybody knew about,
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, I think Nintendo, though, to their credit, I mean, they've earned our, it's like Willy Wonka opening the chocolate factory every now and then. And instead of blowing you away, it's like, man, it's everlasting gobstopper 2, eh? And it's going to sell great, but you've been trained, just like Steve Jobs used to train you with one more thing, to have expectations of like being a kid at Christmas. And I think the Switch will continue to do really well. The Switch 2, I'm very excited for the April game reveal, because that's obviously where the rubber meets the road. There are some interesting speculations happening about Mario Kart 9 based on what they showed, but I got
one for you, and it's in my video. It's actually, I put it in the last couple of videos, and it just came to me as I was shooting the leak reaction video.
What do you got? What is it?
Well, the mouse thing is a big deal, and they highlighted it today. If they include Mario Paint in Nintendo Switch 2,
and customized,
a brand new Mario Paint, new, that lets you use it as a mouse and create all kinds of art and share it. I mean, they should, right? You take a screenshot and you embellish it with all kinds of stuff, and you share that to your community. That's a system seller. And that will blow
they did that away on the Wii, right? They did that where you could kind of share your art on the Wii.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't Mario Paint. It wasn't that same kind of level of like, let's
go. Do you think they let you? They're not going to let you customize your cars though in Mario Kart though, right? I mean, that would get into some brand shit like Cox on, Princess Daisy's carriage. They're not. I mean, it's Nintendo, right?
If they're using AI to upscale, they probably have got some AI technologies out there that can catch stuff like that. And honestly, I think that is going to be I'm just thinking of this now, but that's probably going to be one of the biggest applications for AI going forward, is copyright infringement, and using AI like YouTube does right now. When anybody tries to make a Spider-Man thing or whatever, unless that is a licensed deal, that AI is going to catch that and say, no, you can't do it. And it's going to be maybe messy and piss people off, but I think that will be a way that, I mean, Nintendo is very, very conservative with the language and the way that it's family friendly, right?
Absolutely.
Who can blame them? So I do think, though, that they're also a company about expression. They are the same company that made Mario Paint and made that they made a whole commercial system around it. They are a trippy company, and I think they do have some really cool surprises still with Switch 2, but nothing that we saw today.
And by the way, if you don't know, I know you know, but if people are listening to Victor and you don't know what he's talking about, the you're talking about the ability for the Joy-Cons to come out, and you basically use it like a mouse on a desk, or if you're lying down, or wherever it'll.
Yep.
Right. And I'm assuming that's going to be big for Metroid Prime, and that's going to be big for Halo, which is probably coming, and it may even be announced next week at the Xbox thing. Maybe that's a rumor, but who knows? You know, I don't think it's just for like the creative programs. I'm assuming they're going to use it for a lot of games and shit, which is kind of cool. I think that's a neat way to do it. It's very clever. But, you know, I don't know. I guess it seems like from your anecdotal experience and my just sort of looking at the internet, like Keeley put up a thing saying, hey, what did you guys think of the reveal? And I think it's like he like A, B, C or below. And I think right now, like the majority, 31% gave it an A and 30% gave it a B, you know? So it seems like people were very positive on this reveal.
This is what we wanted. I think we love when Nintendo surprise. I'm speaking for myself, but
I think most people.
I think we wanted them to just deliver what is working, you know, and I think everybody's got this concern that we were going to go down the Wii U path, that Nintendo was going to maybe be a little too esoteric this time, and the Switch was so freaking good, except it started a little behind the curve technologically, and it was always running at sort of, you know, less of the horsepower race as the other guys. And so that has been the complaint all the way along. And yet, you know, we've had some of the best video games ever made for that platform. And so now we've got something that's spec'd out closer to the PlayStation 4, which if you look at PS5 or even PS5 Pro games, they're not that far off from what we remember on the PlayStation.
On the 4.
Yeah, the 4 was pretty solid. You know?
They're smart though about, you know, keeping the budgets down, not just for the hardware, so they're profitable right away, but it's you know, they are. I look, okay. First, I love the Wii. I love the Wii U. I'm an Iwata fan. I'm a Miyamoto fan. I found the Switch, the first Switch. The mainline games didn't blow me away. Certainly, what they did with Breath of the Wild was amazing. I loved Echoes of Wisdom, but I've said, and people in my chat got mad at me and they're like, you're a fucking idiot, you know, whatever. But it didn't have that magic to me in terms of the mainline software. And people were like, well, yeah, you have to play a little bit deeper into some of the exclusives.
Do you want to re-review Metroid Dread right now?
I mean, no, I mean, I still have a problem with that fucking game, you know. It's terrible onboarding, you know, and it didn't, you know, I mean, and two, it's, you know, it's not like it's some mega seller. And let me ask you another question about Metroid, by the way.
Yeah.
When we were talking about this on my show the other day, we brought back up the Metroid Prime 4, or whatever they're going to call it, trailer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, wouldn't you agree? Like, and again, that was probably running on Switch 1. It's going to launch on Switch 2. It's going to be upgraded and everything. But if it wasn't called Metroid, wouldn't you say that trailer was super duper underwhelming? It was like, okay.
It's really hard to take a Metroid game out of context, even the 2D games as well. Like there is this thing that happens about hour 5 in all the Metroid games where it is an all-encompassing envelopment, you know, like you just feel like, oh my God, I'm in this world. Like Metroid Prime Remastered, which was time has no meaning anymore. Was it last year or 2 years? But whenever it came out and they shadow dropped it, that ended up being like one of my favorite gaming experiences of that year. Like it was just so freaking incredible to revisit that game. It was a perfect fit on Nintendo Switch. I'm a huge fan of Dread. One Christmas a few years ago, I replayed Super Metroid for the Nintendo Switch Online, and it was a sublime experience. I love the GBA games as well. I love this game.
You couldn't really separate yourself from the nostalgia, even if you wanted to, then, and just look at it as right. Okay.
Yeah, but I also understand that if you are out of context with those games, they don't look like. They're not Call of Duty, you know. They're not showcasing a technological thrill that you know is blowing your mind. Right. It's more
or a mechanical thrill. I mean, fundamentally, I don't need the graphics. If you go, I'm a boomer shooter guy. It's like give me something cool, and I'm there. So, but I will say though, I am a fan of. I'm reading the Iwata book, the new Iwata book right now. I love everything about what that company has stood for so long. And so,
yes,
I hope and I loved Echoes of Wisdom. I don't know if I'm sure you played that.
I really enjoyed that as well. Yeah. Did you play ARMS? It was a
I did. I thought it was fun and gimmicky. It was a launch game. It was cool, but it never really,
didn't sink your teeth in. See, for me, and I explained it in my video today, like I traveled so much for the show, right? I was always on the road. A lot less so since COVID, but I was everywhere with the work. And so the Switch
was with you.
Like within months of the Switch launching, I was at MIPCOM in Cannes, France with my cameraman, and we were both had our Switches on planes, trains, and automobiles, and we're playing all of these launch
that's
games.
Fun. So you're playing ARMS together on the train.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And like everywhere we went, and so and of course, Breath of the Wild is my favorite game still that I've ever played, and I've just been like, wow, like
wait, you like Breath more than Tears?
Much more, yeah. I think
interesting.
Tears is a better technological showcase, and the physics are better, but it's too much. And I think that this is a major problem with a lot of video games. I think that they are sort of engineered to just sort of keep you there forever.
Yeah,
and they overstay their welcome. I felt that about Red Dead Redemption 2 as well. Like they're perfect games, but they're also too much. And Breath, like I love finishing a game and going, oh my God, I missed that game.
That's done.
Yeah. I want to feel like, but I want to feel a little melancholy leaving that world. The first time that really hit me was Eco, when I finished Eco.
Yeah, absolutely.
Metal Gear Solid 3. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to be done. I've just I spent 20 hours or 24 hours or 10 hours in here, and I love this. And with Tears, it was like 200 hours. And I was like, okay.
Another shrine. I can't do it.
I'm ready. I'm ready to finish this now. I loved it. But
I wonder about, well, let me stick on the Switch for just a few more minutes, a few more questions. But so when you look at, so I was very underwhelmed by it, but of course I'm waiting for April to see the games, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's where everything matters. But did you get any interesting takeaways? Like there have been a lot of articles coming out now about Mario Kart 9 and what they could have been giving away. Like what is that little diner? Are there pit stops? Or why does, forget the character's name, one of the ladies, what's her name? Rosalina. Yeah. Why is she riding a snowmobile that actually has treads? Are we going to be able to go into the snow, or 24 players? I mean, did you pull anything out of that you thought was a really interesting observation?
The only thing that I did do was think that I should create a separate video about, I had a little piece talking about Mario Kart 9, but then I said, you know what, this deserves its own conjecture. And I've been thinking a lot about what the hell Nintendo's going to do to beat Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because that game, that's the best racing game I've ever played, just because it just lays on all of this fun, and then there's all this DLC content and all of these fantastic Nintendo characters. The only thing that I can keep thinking of at, baseline is that Nintendo's got this Smash formula, and they could absolutely reach across to different partner studios and say, we want to put Okami in here. We want to put Solid Snake in here.
I mean, they did it with Link already, right? In the last Mario Kart.
Yeah, and Animal Crossing and the Splatoon characters. And there's lots of great little homages, but they could go wider with the circle and honestly take a cue from Diddy Kong Racing and give us like a story mode.
Yeah, the adventure mode. That would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. So, and I saw today, I knew it was mega because it lives forever in the top 10 since it came out, but 65 million copies. I couldn't believe that. 65 million sold through. That's nuts, man. Delightful.
Well, deserving though. Like how do you even approach that? Like there's other really great racing games. It boggles my mind why Sony doesn't see the value in Wipeout. There's a universe created there from Designers
but it never
Republic.
Really sold. I think they should be doing PlayStation Kart. I think they should be doing PlayStation All-Stars meets Marvel Rivals. I think they should be doing Hearthstone meets PlayStation. But I wouldn't base it on Wipeout. Wipeout was great, but Wipeout was America's Twisted Metal. Like Twisted Metal in Europe, like some people like it, but it didn't connect. In America, a lot of people love Wipeout, but it was so Euro flavored that it never really got off the ground here.
The only thing that I would say about that is that it's really hard to base the sales data off of like a different time, a different period in gaming.
That's fair.
And there was so much extended work put into the universe building of Wipeout that it could, like just in every building and all of the design choices that could be populated. I mean, that's what they didn't ever do with Wipeout, is give it character. They gave it story beats and things like that, but they could augment that and really give us like a super sci-fi, super slick with unbelievable music artists, like a Blade Runner cart, in a way, and I always loved the mechanics. They were very different, and so many other games were inspired by it, but it also isn't as accessible as Mario Kart. And that would be something that Sony should work on, is making it a little, the ramp up a little bit easier for most people. And I think that's probably what happened, is people tried it at parties or whatever, at kiosks, and they were like, holy shit, this is kicking my ass. This is too hard for me. Right?
That's right.
And then they walked away. But if you stick with that game, you see the depth. And it's always been I've loved them both throughout my career, Mario Kart. And
Mario Kart can get fucking heavy duty. I mean, I've played against people that I'm just like, okay, this is not fun at all. This is ridiculous. My last Switch question for you is that, this idea that they had to come out with a video today, and again, most people took it a lot better than I did. I was just like, this is super. I did a video saying it was the most possibly underwhelming hardware launch I've seen, and someone's like, well, what about the Xbox One? I'm like, okay, fair. But, it was just like, and people were like, yeah, but Jaffe, they had to get out because of all the leaks. And I was like, why? What does it mean? If they hadn't said another thing until April, and then they come out with the hardware in 10 games and were like, hey, we're launching in July. Yeah. What would it have mattered? Certainly it didn't hurt them. Clearly people are excited. I'm in the minority here, but I'm just wondering, like, what is this narrative about? We have to come out because of the leaks. Why does it matter?
I think they had this date circled. I think they've been thinking about this date for a long time. I've been expecting a couple things. I've been expecting shadow drops of Metroid Prime 2 and 3 to get us sort of into the prep zone of 4. But I was anticipating the Switch 2 to launch a little earlier than I think it's going to.
Me too.
I think we're gonna see it in April, but I don't know if we're getting it until summertime or possibly fall, which would suck. But it might be June. I'm not sure. I don't know when we're getting it. But I was expecting a reveal in January, and we get it in March, April, which I think correlated with what we got in 2017.
Right.
And so I think they had this on the books, and I think somewhere along, I saw a great video from Kit and Krista. They talked about, because they used to both work at Nintendo, they talked about how angry people would be at Nintendo that somehow the
you mean working at Nintendo because the leaks.
Yeah, because that's why there is any question about this. If they had launched this without any other BS around it, because we already made up our minds about it. We're talking about the specs. So Nintendo never talks about the specs. We are talking about the specs because those have leaked. And so everybody's walking into this with their expectations sort of wherever they're set, and their suppositions about what Nintendo is delivering already pre-baked. And in a better world, it would have been like, here's our hardware. What do you guys think? And here's our decision. We've never made a 2 for a console before. What do you guys think? And instead, all of the conversation is, well, they didn't surprise us. And they didn't, because everything was leaked.
Yeah, to be fair, that's not my conversation. My conversation is, okay, like you said, it's exactly what you thought. It's a little bit more. But until they show me how they're going to use that little bit more, I'm like, sure, great. I think it's going to be, do you think they're sailing into meaningfully more difficult waters now that we have Steam Deck and we have...
I've been thinking about this too. Not at all. Because the PC systems are all cannibalizing each other. They're all excellent, by the way. I have an Ally X and a Steam Deck, and I love them. Yeah. But they're all sort of biting at the same apple. And again, Nintendo's over here. Nintendo's got their own market, their own model. All they do is make video games. They make tons of them. Now all the third-party companies can squeeze their games onto this machine. It's not going to be an act of God to get The Witcher 3 working on Nintendo Switch.
But come on, but people need to really think about that, because I've heard a lot of people say that today, and it's like, The Witcher 3, which is by the time it'll be like a 9-year-old game. So Sure, it can run that. But it's never, if you're saying,
one,
yeah, but if you're saying PS4, this is basically a PS4, give or take.
They're still shipping PS4 and Xbox One games today.
Absolutely.
And so that has not spec'd out. And so I think you just add the Switch 2 to your spec of your next gen game, which is most games, apart from the core exclusives from Xbox and its partners and the core exclusives from PlayStation. There are I feel like most games are still kind of in that middle point between PS4, PS5 right now. And Switch fits tidily in there. And if DLSS 4.0 can actually deliver, we might see Witcher 4 on there. I suspect we're going to see. I don't think it's as much of a look at what's running on Steam Deck. That's blowing my mind. Yeah, and this is going to be about that power, or maybe a little more, or hovering around there.
Right.
And NVIDIA has not been in this handheld discussion. They're not delivering their DLSS to the deck or the other AMD based handhelds. This is NVIDIA, who has all the money.
Yeah.
And Nintendo cordoning them off and saying, look, we want this AI algorithm stuff to make our games really pop on this hardware. I think we're about to see what, more horsepower plus this combination of DLSS is capable of on Switch 2. And I think it's going to really impress us.
Yeah. My point, though, is just, that ultimately, because Xbox and mainly Sony and PC games really drive the narrative of what next gen looks like, because they make the kind of decisions they do that are very wise at Nintendo. It's you're to go out and pre-order a Switch 2 because you think this is now going to let me play, Cyberpunk 2078 when it comes out. It's like, and you're probably going to have the exact same problem. It's like whenever hardware comes out, and it's like, now we've got this much memory. Oh, everything's going to now be 60 frames a second. It's like, no, because developers are just going to throw more shit at it, and you're always going to have that push and pull. But it doesn't matter. The bigger question is, why can't Sony? Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they don't need to. I don't know if you saw Shu on Kind of Funny yesterday, but he was talking about how expensive the big games are getting, which everybody knows.
My next point,
And he was talking about, hey, maybe you guys should support some of these remasters because the money we make on those go towards making new IP, blah, blah, blah. And I look at Nintendo, and it's like, they are so pure about what they are making, and they start with gameplay, not theme, not story. Is it fun to do? Oh, it is. Let's keep working on it. Right. Why do you think that philosophy, which is proven out again and again and again and again, is so unappealing to any other video game publisher developer, certainly the other big two, Xbox and PlayStation, when it clearly works?
I honestly, I've been scratching my head on that for a long time. And I think that the biggest example of that was Astrobot and the developers winning Game of the Year and going up and thanking Nintendo, although they can't say Nintendo.
I know, yeah.
But yeah, Nintendo is about games first. And I don't always know if PlayStation and Xbox are thinking like that. I feel like they all want to have these huge cultural moments that they ship that have all of these, incredible licensing opportunities or subscription opportunities. Or now it's, hopefully we're at exhausting this drive to get everybody into these live service, debacles. And I think Nintendo just goes, well, listen, if you double down, they're essentially an interactive toy company, right? They create these toys that we play with, not just in the current moment, but we go back to them. Like if we think about what we go back to play, a large majority of those classic games are on Nintendo platforms.
And they still work. They still engage.
Super fun. Yeah. And a huge reason that stuff sort of exists forever is exactly their smart kind of understanding of the limitations. They put strict budget limitations and strict personnel limitations, and they do start with gameplay first. And usually they don't load in too much stuff. Usually people are left wanting more and looking forward to the next one. And this is my biggest source of being baffled in the video game industry. We seem to have really moved to this idea of locking everybody into things for hundreds of hours or thousands of hours. And I just see that as like, well, you're removing the choice for that consumer, that player, to think about what they're going to play next, because they're now.
Yeah, but sure. But that's kind of like saying, you know, I mean, when you get the hit, though, it's like going take one for the entire team. Like the only way it would ever happen is like in the movies where all the mafia heads get together and go, look, for our own survival, we know Epic, you've got Fortnite. You know, that's great for now. We know Microsoft, you've got Call of Duty. The well will eventually run dry, and you will be where we are right now, and we may be on top of the mountain. And it's like it's bad, but I'm playing Call of Duty like a motherfucker right now. I'm playing Marvel Rivals like a motherfucker right now. And I still love single player games more. But when I look at Call of Duty 6, for example, Black Ops 6, I'm like, that value in that game, even if you paid $70 versus the Game Pass or whatever version you're playing, you know, even if you pay nothing else after that, they're always dropping modes, special events, maps, new characters, new skins, new things to unlock. It's like, why would you want to go anywhere else, right? How could you say no to that?
There are games that are kind of industries unto their own, which absolutely prove that model out. But what I've seen over the last decade is everybody kind of chasing that with their own products. And running into a wall, recognizing the costs and the competition. And ultimately, the biggest currency that people don't really start to talk about with these things is time. And people are freaking busy. And we got less busy with COVID. And then, you know, it started to die down and people went back to work, got super busy. Game sales totally dropped off. And we're all chasing these consumers with these live service opportunities. Well, Fortnite becomes a freaking everything game, you know, like you can make your own games and put your game in that game. Like it seems crazy to me, because I don't think it's about growing consumer interest at this point, you know, like it's about growing these individual products. They're working, but I don't know if there's room in a person's life to fit another one in, you know.
Did you see the interview? I always get his last name wrong. Was it one of the Bungie co-founders, Alex Seropian? He was talking about, he's like, you know, the industry is going through a drastic change as it relates to, and he mentioned Fortnite and he mentioned Roblox, and he's like, you know, the new games are happening there, right? And because the platform itself, it's almost like the virtual version of
their
the NES
consoles.
or the right, exactly. And I think it speaks to, when we're going to get to indie in just a second, but all of these games this year, and I believe you are an Outlaws fan as well, Star Wars Outlaws.
I liked it a lot.
I like that a great deal. I actually like Dragon Age, Veilguard a great deal. I know a lot of people didn't.
I played a ton of that and loved it.
But there are a lot of these sort of underperforming. I mean, even something like Silent Hill 2, which I thought was astoundingly great, doesn't seem like it set the sales world on fire. And DEI arguments and all that crap aside, I wonder how much of it really is the AAA stuff or the single player stuff that we're talking about.
It's getting eaten into because people don't have the time, man.
And kids, I don't know how old your kid is, but my youngest, okay, so she's certainly in that age. My youngest and his friends did not come up giving a fuck about anything other than Fortnite and Roblox and Among Us. And when I did a poll out to my Twitter audience, because I'm like, is this just my experience? The vast majority of responses was like, yeah, no, my nephews, my nieces, my kid, they're tangentially aware of these things. So I almost wonder how much of the hammering that a lot of these games have gotten in sales, the stuff that you and I came up with going, how did that not do great? It's just, we're kind of no longer the mainstream of the market that they expected to show up. There's not enough of us left. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've been heavily marketed to. I think that the consumers that are growing up, they've been heavily marketed to, and it's there's great value in a lot of these games, but there's also this insidious quality of trying to get some money out of you, nickels and dimes at a time, and you're not always being fully aware of what you're buying when you're jumping in, or you spend more than you want a character, but you spend more than that, so you have a surplus amount of money, so that you're enticed to go back in and maybe accumulate a little bit more money so you can get another character, and it's smart. But it's also, I believe, taking the people that are really hooked on that kind of journey away from playing some other richer types of experiences out there, and really understanding the artistry of the medium and the way that the best work is being curated and crafted and put out there. And you just have to look at the nominees for the best game of the year. They're all single player tales that really kind of take the player on a real journey. It breaks my heart that Astrobot has been discussed as not being like one of the biggest sellers for PlayStation or whatever.
Not even close. Yeah.
And I don't.
Nor was Ratchet Rift Apart, which I think is the best. I know people disagree with me, but I think it's the best Ratchet I've ever played. I love that game, and it barely broke even. I mean, but I think that speaks more to like Sony just seems to be incapable. I thought Astrobot, which I didn't love, but I appreciated it a great deal, and I know why it's beloved by so many. Yeah, but I assumed
what didn't you love about it? I'm curious.
I was expecting a 3D platformer, and instead it was a very
a nostalgia machine.
Well, no, I didn't mind that. I thought that was delightful, but it certainly did a lot of the heavy lifting, by the way, the nostalgia machine. But I like 3D platformers that feel more like adventures, and this very much felt like a Mark Cerny game. He's like, it's an obstacle course. Everything was it's a challenge, and people love that. But I don't play games to be challenged. I play games to go on adventures.
Did you go back to it? Have you gone back to it?
I re-downloaded it. I almost finished it. I got to like the second to last boss, and then I saw the Christmas level, which just looks so delightful. And I'm like, you can't get it unless you finish it, the mainline game. Yeah. So I'm going to go back to it because I love Christmas stuff.
I loved it. And I said it in the review. I had to be honest. Like I loved it, and I did love the PlayStation nostalgia, but it also kind of pissed me off because all of these awesome franchises are just sitting there, and it's like, PlayStation, why are you putting all of this incredible work into this game? Where is a new Sly Cooper?
Sure.
And and it's interesting because we are talking about the philosophy thing here. Like Nintendo would never do that. They would have all of these engines firing, and they'd figure out how to spread the budget across all of these different ideas.
You're right. But the thing that's missing, though, is that they had the success. They had enough success with Kirby to go, let's keep the Kirby machine going. They're not like they're more noble. Like to them, to Sony, Nathan Drake is their Mario, or Kratos is their Mario, not because he's better or worse than Mario, but because Kratos sells for them. But Puppeteer does not. Astrobot does not. Sackboy's Big Adventure, which was excellent, does not. And I thought with Astrobot, what would be happening would be they said, okay, we have the timing right now. So the adults now have kids that came up with the nostalgia. So now the adults are going to get it. It's going to suck the kids in. Now we've got multi-generations like Nintendo has. I figured this would be the reason they greenlit yet another family game, which they can't seem to sell to save their lives. But it didn't seem to matter. They can't seem to crack that nut.
We are in a weird position with PlayStation because I do feel like they are experimenting a lot less with the stuff that they are greenlighting than they have in their eras. And they're being, it's exemplified in Astrobot, and to their detriment. I don't think they should be looking for grand slams with everything that they go out there. I think that they can come in with different budgets, and I think that they've kind of painted themselves into a bit of a corner, expecting everything to look like The Last of Us or Uncharted or Spider-Man. And those games are phenomenal. Like they're like high watermarks for the entire industry. Sure. But PlayStation also has lots and lots of IP that could come out in lots of interesting ways. And that's honestly what I give the biggest tip of the hat to Nintendo for. It was like last year or something, and I counted everything up. And they had F-Zero, and they had the Metroid release, and they had an incredible Fire. Like I think it was last year. I can't put months together anymore. I don't know where things are. It's all out
but
of
I know what you mean. Yeah, there was F-Zero and even Metroid Dread, which is interesting because I mean, yeah, I get shit for it and I give it shit, but clearly, if you like that sort of stupid thing, they
named a genre after that stupid thing.
Well, half of the genre.
Yeah.
That's the bad half, right?
Oh, geez.
Some fucking mutt. But I mean, the fact that they came out and they're like, hey, this sold 5 million copies, right? That's, and probably because the budget wasn't so crazy, that's a win. But if Sony comes out and says Days Gone only sold 8 million copies because they spent so much money on it, and that's the thing. I think that, movies for a long time had those kind of boutique divisions, and they also had a business model where a win could be, hey, it made a tidy profit. But these days, at least at most publicly traded companies, a tidy profit is no longer acceptable. So every time you step up, you've got to swing for the fucking grand slam.
And it's to their detriment. I think PlayStation has a real opportunity to get a little bit weird. I know they got to show off the capabilities of the Pro, and they got to get us all set for the 6. But man, they've got so many cool, like you mentioned, Puppeteer and Concrete Jungle, or Concrete Genie was just absolutely incredible. I don't know if you played Fear the Spotlight.
I did. I was disappointed in it, honestly. I was looking forward to it because it's Blumhouse, and I'm like, okay, they're going to bring to bear all of their fucking knowledge of what scares us, and they're going to work with game creators. And I thought it was fine, but there were such better. Like there's a game out this year called While We Wait Here, which is mostly all set in a diner, and it probably was one guy, and it's the creepiest fucking thing. There's a brilliant game called Among Ashes that's also a one-man band. That's what I was kind of expecting from Blumhouse, and Fear the Spotlight was just very vanilla, benign. Okay, so
well, the thing that it inspired in me to think about is that Sony has a lot of these fantastic PlayStation 1 games, which are really clunky to go back to now.
Oh, sure.
They're in between digital and analog controls. They were figuring it out. And so a lot of, like, you'll play a classic racing game and it's only on the D-pad or whatever. Sony has an opportunity, and it hit me in a flash. It's like, why not go back and just call these PlayStation 1 refreshed? Work with all of these classic old PlayStation 1 games, spend $100,000 per title or something like that, get a developer or two to jump in and tune the controls and up-res everything so that it looks pretty decent on 4K, and release them on the store and sell them for $10 a pop.
Because what's the upside? What would be the point? The amount of money you would have to spend to put producers on it and
the upside is keeping those brands alive. There's clearly a market for this retro PS1 kind of aesthetic that's happening right now. It may be small, but it's a nurtured little thing that's happening right now, just like we saw with all of the pixel art work that's been going on over the last several years. It may be small, but you don't know when that one game comes out that kind of shakes everything right up, and people go, oh my God, this is incredible. I can't miss this.
I would take your idea and I would add a wrinkle to it, though. I would say take those IP and I would say and be okay with the fact that you don't want to lose money, but you're probably, for the most part, every title, a tidy profit is acceptable. But every now and then go out and get, people who can use your tech and say, we want a 6-man band to make us a new slide. It only has to be 3 hours. We just want to keep it going. We'll put it on PS Plus for free for premium members, and then we'll sell it to everybody else for $15. And it could be something that you guys come up with a mechanic or a story or an IP that breaks through, and you go from the farm leagues to the big leagues. That's what I think a lot of these companies are missing, that understandably have to do well more than a tidy profit. But think about this for a minute. This last year, we had Indiana Jones, we had Star Wars Outlaws, we had Marvel. Now, I don't know exactly your age. You're close to my generation. I don't know if you're officially Gen X or
I'm Gen X.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
So everything is our shit.
Yeah.
These kids, if you take away, their YouTube heroes, if you take away
I think about this all the time. Yeah.
Right? I mean, where is their shit coming from? And this would be, you've got to have a farm league. in order to save your company down the line, right? To say, okay,
well, and to utilize this IP. I mean, that's the thing that kind of bothered me about Astrobot. It's like, okay, this is amazing, but there are 1,000 games in this game. You know, like you have just popped up, and I definitely have this theory. It's like, how much IP can a generation of human beings kind of grapple with? And everybody's trying to create new IP all the time, but to filter through this noise and to get past Marvel and all the other, and Star Wars and all these other things. Look at the trouble Apple TV is having getting people to watch their excellent shows.
That's right.
We have so much stuff that we have to focus on. And, you know, I love that people are always building new things. Don't get me wrong, but there's lots of awesome things that are just sitting there that we could get something new from. Look at all the unmade Marvel games, you know? And I know, and all the DC games that are unmade out there.
I was going to ask you this when we get to indie, which we will very, very soon, because I know we're going long on this topic, but it's fascinating to me. I love talking to you about it. And I hope the audience is enjoying it. And I see your super chats and stuff. I will get to them, but I want to stay focused on Victor right now. Because he needs a little coddling. He's a TV star. He needs to be taken care of. But I wonder, like, let's just we'll jump to indie and come back to this and get back to indie. But I look in indie, and my favorite game of the year, one of my favorite games of all time. Yeah. And I can't say how well it has done. I know it's obviously going to get a new lease on life when it comes to PlayStation 5. I went and I looked. I was just curious at Steam database before, and it's got like 1,700 people playing it on Steam. Obviously, the majority are playing it on Game Pass, so it wouldn't be registering on Steam. But that's, and it is a single player one and done, so when you're finished with it, like you said, you have a little nostalgia for it, but you're not going to play it forever. But I wonder about, like, if you are Craig at Lucas or you are Sony and going, is there a willingness on the part of the consumer? Like, if, let's say, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was a success and they want to do more, but it wasn't Spider-Man 20 million copy success for a variety of reasons we can get into. If they were to say, okay, let's keep the indie thing going, it's great, it's awesome, but let's put a limit on, kind of like when Spielberg made Raiders. Spielberg had come off 1941 and he spent all kinds of money. It was a big disaster. And him and Lucas were like, let's do Raiders, but let's be so fucking penny pinching. And they came in under budget and under schedule. And it went off to, could you see the consumer playing a AA Indiana Jones game? Or would they say, oh, fuck that.
I have talked to Craig exactly about that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think
he won't talk to me because the cocaine. So what is it that he said to you?
Yeah, I think all options are out there, and they're always, looking at different things. They are looking at it more from a licensing kind of point of view. As is clear with the partnerships that they have around this, and they're probably learning some lessons from Star Wars Outlaws. And it is kind of a shocking time, but I think it also speaks to the busyness of the time and how many different things are pulling people away at this moment in time. Like, I don't know. Craig is also doing that Star Wars Hunters game, the live.
Yeah, just came out on PC now.
Yeah, and I don't know how that's doing. I don't know, but I would imagine that's a tricky business, and
because you got to pull people away from all the other shit.
Marvel Rivals is like their rival, like that's got to be weird. You're both working at Disney, and you got a Marvel and a Star Wars.
I hope to because I saw this with the Disney Speed Force game, right? Which I thought was a really good game. Yep. I didn't play it for that long, but I thought the track design was good. It controlled great, but it didn't grab me enough to really make me a mega fan.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't give a fuck about your silos at this point. Marvel Rivals, go fuck yourself. Marvel Rivals, give me Star Wars 2. Put Indiana Jones in there. What are you doing? I don't
promise of metaverse,
Yeah, but it's like, the multiverse. There's not a multiverse where Indiana Jones lives with in the world of Spider-Man. Fuck you. Nobody cares. Do it. Fortnite does it. People love it. Can you imagine?
That's the epic Disney deal, which is going to be profound.
That's exactly right.
We were at D23 this year, and in the middle of their panel about all of the theme park things that they were going to do, they stopped the show essentially to talk about the partnership between Epic and Disney.
Yeah.
And Dave Filoni came up on stage. Kevin Feige came up on stage.
I saw this.
Every single massive person at each of the silos of Disney came up on stage to talk about the joy and optimism that they feel in their relationship with Epic Games.
Yeah.
And they didn't show us what their big partnership is going to be. I think it's going to be basically a Disneyland Fortnite kind of idea, but more under the control of Disney IP. Craig knows, but he'll never tell us.
Right. But you'll go like the Avengers Mansion will be like a land or Marvel Land or whatever, and there'll be quote rides or games or whatever.
Yes.
I mean,
and then I think they're going to give a lot of agency to the player to build in that space as well, to create things, to be their own character in that world.
What is the budget? Is over $1 billion, or is it $1 billion? I've heard the number is just a crazy number.
I know. I mean, it's a digital theme park. And do you stop? I mean, we're from a generation where we see the acceleration with all of this.
Yeah.
But do you ever stop and just go like, holy shit, we all live in two realities all the time now. We're online humans.
I love it.
And we're in IRL humans,
Yeah, I don't even like the IRL as much anymore. I really don't. I don't give a fuck what people say. I don't care if it's unhealthy. I was playing Sea of Thieves the other day. I had my own ship. I set it to just auto sail towards these rocks, and I got on the mast and I looked up at the stars, and I'm like, I'm happy here.
I want to come down and hang out with you on the beach, man. I like
the virtual
real beach. You have beautiful beaches in San
Diego.
I
have to leave my house. I'm not going outside.
I'm gonna knock on your door. I'm gonna get a tandem bike for two, and we're gonna go ride to the beach and watch the waves for a little bit. And no graphics, no visuals.
Let me be clear with you, Victor. Okay.
Yeah.
I am, and you know this. I'm probably the most progressive guy you know.
Yeah.
I am all for DEI. I'm LGBT ally up and down. That's a little gay. And it's not a bad thing. Nothing's wrong with that. But I'm not riding a goddamn tandem bicycle with you, Victor. That's a call you make to Tommy, not to me. I think it sounds delightful. Delightful.
That'd be great. We'll pack a lunch. We'll get outside.
I'm in.
It sounds like my co-host Scott Jones would always say that stuff to me. I'm just like you. I'm obsessed about all the I have 3 freaking screens in front of me right now. Like we are connected too much.
It's delightful, though. I mean, that we can have this relationship and this. My daughter is in Vegas now, and it sucks that I don't get to physically see her and hug her every day, but. I see her and I talk to her and we play Wordle a lot almost every night together with her and her boyfriend and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, it's zeros and ones, but it's atoms and quarks. It's the same fucking thing. We're all living in the soup of just, the Lord soup, Victor, is what we're swimming in.
Well, we might all just be data anyways. So what is the difference?
I think we are. Right. Punisher, though, last thing on this is imagine like if Disney, I don't know how they're going to demarcate it and stuff. I don't know if you saw the Daredevil trailer. That was fucking awesome. But imagine just going to the guys who, going to the guys who made Ultra Kill or Mullet Jack or one of these 2 or 3 or 4 or Angerfoot and going, just, we don't need the pomp and circumstance of a AAA.
Dude, we're seeing this play out. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
It's a great game for that IP.
I want Craig.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, this guy. What did his mother and I go wrong? I want you to go out to the guys that do Ultra Kill or Dave Oshry over at what's his company called? The guys who make Dusk. I'm
not sure.
Whatever. Amazing indie shooters, raw as fuck, and give them the Punisher license. Don't charge them for it. Just say thank you, and I'll see you in 18 months. Because can you imagine a raw as fuck hard R Punisher boomer shooter? These guys would kick it out the door.
I want Remedy to make a Doctor Strange game.
Oh.
Could you imagine what those guys could do with Doctor Strange?
Would you give it to Remedy or would you give it to Insomniac with all their weird abilities and weapons and stuff? Because Insomniac, I think, makes more commercial.
Insomniac, anything. Anything they want to make, they should, honestly, if there was a way to clone the teams at Insomniac.
Yeah.
And why they're there is because of all of the weird experimentation and even the other types of, and the publishing deals that they did with Meta and with Xbox. They got a chance to taste a whole bunch of different directions. They were scrappy and indie for so long. they know how to do anything.
That's right.
But they were at AAA scale, and they always delivered. They are carrying the PlayStation 5 right now with their software. And
what's interesting though is Wolverine though. I'm fascinated to see, because I was talking to some people, and I'm not going to go into names and stuff, but you know him, we all know him. Craig knows him. Yeah. And it's like, one of the things that has been, and this is really tricky, one of the things that has been so successful because of Insomniac is how Price and whoever else kind of manages everything, is that it's like, you've got room to run, you've got room to be creative, but we're also a company that's like, when that door is shut, it's time to get to work and build off these templates that we know and add whatever you can. And that's why they're able to be so consistent with their output and quality. Well, I look at something like Wolverine, and I would never judge a game by leaks, of course, that's ridiculous. But I think in terms of polish, and it's going to look brilliant, it's going to control brilliant, there's no doubt. But that's a hard nut to crack, I would imagine, because Wolverine is about the character, but mechanically speaking, it's just a melee game with a sniff Batman power is what it looks like. And I'm like, that's got to be a hard thing to solve.
Well, I mean, if you look at who was the team that made the X-Men Wolverine's Revenge game, for the
Genesis back in the day?
No, or what was it?
Oh, you mean the Wolverine Origins, the God of War
X-Men Origins?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
they did a really good job at mechanically, and it wasn't maybe narratively the richest source material,
right?
But they made a really fun Wolverine game. So and Insomniac did that. Like, there've been so many excellent Spider-Man games before they got into it, and they just did their homework on all the good Spider-Man games. There's been some decent Wolverine games. They just have to kind of look at the giants from before, like the people that have done well, and stand on their shoulders and knock it out of the park. And think about the lessons they learned.
I think mechanically he's tough though, because he doesn't have, it's not swing. Or he doesn't have all the weird Doctor Strange powers, or he doesn't have the gore factor of the. I mean, he does, but how far are they going to push that? Okay, anyway, all right.
He'll have a bike. He'll have a kick-ass bike, and he'll whip around in the streets.
Will it be tandem?
I hope so.
It's called a callback, Victor. You should know. It's on TV. TV kids came up with that.
A tandem bicycle with Wolverine.
He's got Deadpool on the back, but you got to buy the DLC. That would be awesome. Okay, let me ask you one more quick question. Sony making a God of War service game that was canceled. Did you hear about this?
No, but I bet there's been a lot of live service games that have been canceled at PlayStation.
God of War service-based game. Now, I don't know what it was. It's the first I heard about it. If it was like a survival arc game in the world of Greek mythology or something, okay, maybe. Anyway, I don't know anything about it. I wanted to throw it out there because it's breaking news. But
I respect that these games are super fun, but I just want people. I'm a producer of a television show that wants to talk about the next stuff that's coming up on a regular basis. Yeah, and I've had the luxury of coming up through those eras when there were always new games going all the time.
Yes,
and I feel like we are in an era now where there are new games, but they're spaced out a little bit wider, and they have to be home runs or the studio runs into real trouble.
Right.
And then they're being swarmed by all of these other companies that are trying to figure out how to capture you as a player and keep you there forever. And I don't know, I sound like an angry old dude, but I look at what Nintendo does and I go, why can't more companies kind of think like that? And I know that the numbers are bigger if you go and you strike it. If you, strike gold, I know it's bigger, but I think it's healthier.
Isn't it kind of a consumer problem too, though? I mean, I play everything.
Yeah.
Meaning budget wise, right? And so many of the gamers that have come up today, they don't want to play AA. They don't want to play indie, no matter how cool they are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a big problem. And I don't know if that's just, it's not about distribution, because all the consoles have great indie places on them to get indie games. You don't have to have a PC, but maybe it's like you said, it's like, dude, I can barely play, a AAA Spider-Man game because I'm in all these service games. Now you want me to play some thing that doesn't look great, and I have to just trust you that it plays great. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's eating everybody's lunch, not just the single player AAA. It's all the other stuff too. It's the indie games. So
yeah, I mean,
I think Go ahead.
Oh yeah, okay. No, that's a great.
No. Go.
I think if you the industry, the video game industry and the movie industry are different, right? But what the movie industry has done successfully, and maybe a little less so now that it's being run by tech companies, but they've done a good job at preserving the asset, the art of what a game is. And I feel that the video game industry never has been great at that. It's always like, let's move on to the next machine, and who cares about the last stuff? That's why the backwards compatibility news for Switch 2 is pretty impressive, right? But now it's like we're making these games that are service-based, and if they don't do well, they're dead. They're evaporated. So all of that work that went into something, and you might love it, but you don't
doesn't matter.
And you can't play it. You might have it on your hard drive, but it's totally useless. And I just don't feel like that's a real, way to honor the art, the work of, I'm not just talking about the art. I'm talking about the art of building these experiences.
But I mean, but that is only the winners, what is the winners write your history, right? So end of the day, it's not about disrespect. It's about that people are spending more money on stuff that's not what you're talking about. And so, the company, the Oscars, for example, it's all a smoke show. The Oscars is all about marketing. It's about selling more tickets. It's not about, it tells you it's about honoring the art. It tells you it's about appreciating the art, but they started it in 1929 to get more people into theaters. Right. It was a marketing initiative on part of the studio heads. So I think,
if it isn't art, what is it?
It is art.
If it isn't something that we emotionally are moved by and connected to, and I think games are that too.
Sure.
But I'm not just talking about a preservation thing. I'm talking about like knowing that all the way along. And so knowing that when you're investing in this,
right,
that there is this machinery in place to kind of protect it. And I feel like that's being threatened in every kind of way now.
You're such a Canadian. I agree. Adopt me, Canada. I agree. But it's all just, people have fuck the woke mind virus. It's the capitalist it's the unregulated capitalist mind virus. And that runs everything, and I think back to the old movie studios, and I think back to
in a large part with Nintendo. They could do a better job at selling you or giving you access to things you've already bought before and giving you back.
I know why I can look back at the moguls for movies and go, yeah, they were tough business people, but there was also something driving them. And there's a lot of theories as about to why. Why is it that, I don't know who the new guy is, but after Iwata or after Yamaguchi, what is it about that company that allows them to have a better balance than, say, a Sony or any of these other big companies?
Well, they start with games as a corporation,
okay.
And it takes them years and years and years before they sort of trust the process to build a movie or a TV show. I mean, look at how long it took for them to figure out how to give us music, Oh,
I see what you mean. You don't mean Nintendo. You mean just in general.
Nintendo, as a corporation, it's their games first on all of their decisions, and the other companies are part of larger corporations. And there's, like prestige with PlayStation and the Sony brand. It's probably the biggest part of Sony's business now. But Sony's at CES talking about all the movies based on their video games, not on their, game of the year winning Astrobot and how cool it is and how many other things we're going to do around and how many ways we're going to celebrate this, and that's telling, and Xbox, I think, has all of these unbelievable brands, but their whole message is subscribe, as opposed to like, let's get into how Indiana Jones was made and why it works and why it's a travesty that it wasn't nominated for Game of the Year.
Well, that's a schedule thing, right? I mean, that's, okay. So let me get some super chats for you. And then I want to get to Indiana Jones. So Real Boss Moss, thank you for joining the Diet Soda Soldiers. Very much appreciated. Thank you, sir. Johnny Utah, thank you for that big budget super chat. He says, from syndication to YouTube, I have watched Electronic Playground for 20 years. Because of his knowledge, positivity, longevity, and large cock, I added that last one. If I could pick one person to represent the entire gaming community, it would be Vic. By the way, Jaffe, stick this donation up your fat, wrinkly it's not wrinkly. Your mom told me she put cream on it last night. She said it's fine now. But that's from Johnny Utah. You've meant a lot to him, and I as you amazing. Have to many folks. Jojo D says, "Thank you, buddy, for that very generous super chat. I once played a game called Journey. It left an emotional impact on me. I wrote to the developers about it. They wrote back. Has any game you have ever played, Victor, given you such an emotional experience? Please elaborate." Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Boss Moss. What do you think?
Many games. I think the first one that really smacked me in the face was Final Fantasy 3 in North America. It was 6 in Japan.
Right.
But I played it on the Super Nintendo, and I was not a big giant, Japanese role-playing game fan at all. But I'd heard so many good things. I was reading all the magazines back then, and I got to there was like a singing scene or an opera scene in the game. Yeah, and I'm like, what the hell? It floored me that there was just so much beauty and artistry in this game. And I was like really moved by it, and I'd been moved by the design choices and that conversation that you have with designers and you're figuring out the puzzles that they leave for you. And you're impressed by them. I've had that many times, but when I played that game, that really shocked me. But Eco is one that I always think about.
Yeah, that game's delightful. What a great... Have you played it since it came out? Like, I haven't gone back and replayed it.
A couple times I've checked it out, I haven't sat down and played all the way through. And it's not a long game. And that was the thing about that game. It's like the brevity was also part of its beauty. And that feeling of like, you exhale and you're like, I was looking around on the beach going, is that the end? That's it? And I didn't want to leave these characters. And Red Dead Redemption 1 also, when I finished that game and I'd gone through so much and I'd lost so many characters and I think I rode back to Bonnie McFadden's house and I was just trying to see if Rockstar had left some of these different pieces in the world for me. I was freaking moved. Like I was really, and also that scene in Red Dead Redemption 1 where you're riding into Mexico, and then I think it's Jose Garcia. I can't remember the guy's name, but the singer-songwriter starts singing as you're, riding into the dusty world of Mexico, and then this guy starts singing, and I was like, I'm sure I was crying. I'm sure I'm like, holy shit, like this is just incredible art, and most people don't see it. That's been my force on this too. It's like, that's why I've been doing this for so long, guys. Like I feel like most people have no idea. They've got a busy life. They have lots of entertainment choices, and they don't make games their very first thing that they dive into. And so most people don't play. Most people don't really get to experience how incredible this art form is. And that's what drives me. That's why I love talking with game developers and putting these stories together, because human beings thought of this. They thought of how this was going to engage us. And, it's
and the older I get, the more I see the ripple effect. I had a guy reach out to me today that I worked with on God of War. He's worked all over the industry, and he wrote me and said, I'm retiring. And for the last number of years, he's been working on the Call of Duty games. And I said to him, I forget the way I worded it, but the gist was just be aware that the stuff that you helped create, all the games, not just the stuff he and I worked on, but obviously Call of Duty, the amount of just joy that these individuals, and I'm not romanticizing it. I'm not prone to sort of, trying to hyperbolize this shit, but literally, like when you start to recognize that when you create something, and it comes back to you decades later, this meant something to me, this moved me, this, whatever. And I'm like, dude, you worked on God of Wars, you worked on Call of Duties, you worked on Star Wars games. You have had a hand in bringing a lot of people a lot of happiness. That's a pretty fucking cool legacy. So I hope he hears that and gets that. But let's get these great conversation, guys. Thank you, Game Seeker. I knew what you meant. You didn't have to pay twice. Thank you, buddy. Darth Nugget, 44 months. Thank you, buddy. He says, please ask Victor if he ever lost a close friend due to having two first names.
Who the hell asked that?
His name is Darth Nugget. I think he's really hoping tonight's the first night he gets to see an actual breast in real life.
No, I haven't, but I have a great Lucas story if you want to hear it, because everybody's thought that I was related to George Lucas all the way along.
Interesting. Okay.
And I just told my daughter this story, and one year we were at E3, and I was with the production team, and we were walking, and I said, I want to go to somewhere kind of Hollywood-esque for dinner tonight. Why don't we go to the Ivy? Because I've always read about the Ivy. I've never been there. So I call the Ivy and I say, yeah, it's a table for 4 for Lucas. And I could hear the breath go out of the person. And they went, oh, right away. Yes, Mr. Lucas, we'll have a table for you all set up. And they had a beautiful table for us.
Were they disappointed when you showed up and it wasn't Papa Lucas?
No, because, I was made up for TV. So I looked, pretty silent and ready to rock. And everybody was right. So we walked in. But Owen Wilson was in the center table, and he had a couple of women beside him, and he was, wow, exactly. He was sort of sitting back like this, but he was just staring at me the whole time as I walked in. And I don't know if we got the great table or what, but he was just watching me walk to the back table, and I'll never forget that.
That's fantastic. Very surreal. You're probably right. Weird. He probably wanted his table, and he's like, well, someone big is coming in, and he's like,
I don't know. I don't know what the hell happened, but that was a very weird, very Hollywood night. And it was
very cool.
I didn't even really think about the use of my name or anything like that. It just happened,
Excellent.
It just happened.
Listen, here's the question. Indiana Jones, what is your relationship growing up to this character?
Oh man, talk about a franchise and a character that means everything to me. I saw Indiana Jones. I was nervous to see it because in the trailers, there was a lot of talk about Sunday school. And I had a real aversion because I had gone to Sunday school and I hated that whole, I'm not a fan of organized religion. I love faith. I love the idea of people believing in higher powers and being better humans and thinking about others. And empathy. But the idea of this religion is better than this religion, that it's just another way to pit people against each other. That's my own thought. No offense to people out there that do believe. But I didn't want to see Indy because they were talking about Moses and the 10 Commandments and all that stuff. I'm like, oh my God.
This was Raiders. This was the first one.
The Raiders Lost Ark. Okay. And so, but then I kept reading newspaper reviews and things. I kept hearing that it was great. So I went alone.
How old were you?
I was 13.
Okay.
And so I went alone, I think about a month after it had come out, and I could not believe what I was witnessing. It was perfection on screen. I loved every single frame. I loved every choice. I loved the sounds, the cocking of the gun and the explosive gunfire and the punches. I was just like freaking out. And so I saw it 13 times that summer, paid for it every single time. Probably alone every time, just to be like wallow in it and just to kind of just enjoy it. And what blew me away about the game, and Indiana Jones became my favorite character. I've dressed as him for Halloweens, many of them. I've got a ton of Indiana Jones toys and things. I've bought soundtrack, everything. But the game comes in, and I have some thoughts about how this magic piece of art happened at all. But the game comes in, and I knew that Raiders was going to be sprinkled into the game. But I sat down with my daughter, and I said, I really want you to kind of see how cool this is. And I didn't know that it was going to be the Raiders was going to be the opening sequence. Right. And I was playing this early, right? I had a review code. So
did she know anything about Indiana Jones, your daughter?
She had seen Raiders, and she's seen Temple of Doom, probably a little too young. Okay. She's okay. We haven't watched the rest of them. Oh, and she came to Dial of Destiny, which I loved. I know you didn't love it, but I love that movie. And
there's nothing more I want to see than my childhood hero rotting in a fucking sweltering 1960s lazy boy. It was delightful.
We're all gonna get there, man, and that's the power of that movie.
Tickets. I'm not selling tickets to it.
Well, listen, Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones are like surrogate father figures for me. So there's an element there. I don't have a dad, and I grew up with Harrison Ford, and so I've loved him in everything. I saw Blade Runner early as a little kid. Right. I was first in line to see Empire Strikes Back in Vancouver.
Regarding Henry.
I loved Regarding Henry.
Working Girl.
Witness. Working Girl.
Shrinking is great, right? Shrinking is a great fucking show. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Anyway,
so your daughter watches you play the opening of Raiders. What's the goddamn thing called? Circle. Great Circle.
Yeah, the Great Circle, but it's Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
And she's sitting there. I am freaking out.
Yeah.
And I snap back to the fact that I was about her age when I saw Raiders for the first time. So it was just this emotional Indiana Jones punch to the gut, that sort of like, oh my God, it is a great circle. It is.
We're getting into spoilers now, by the way. So, so if you haven't played it and you care, you might want to dip out and come back after you play it. But
yeah,
they basically recreated the opening of Raiders, which, by the way, for, video game history fans, that was inspired by the opening of James Bond. And then the reason we opened all the God of War games the way we did is we were inspired by Raiders, because they just opened right away into the action.
Yeah.
And so they basically did a dream sequence where Indy is sleeping and dreaming about when he went and got the idol, which is the famous scene with the sandbag and the boulder and all that. So anyway, so you're playing this, your daughter's watching, and what do you guys think?
Oh, she's incredibly impressed, and she says, "Wow, looks just like the movie." I am freaking moved. Like, I am like, holy crap, this is like they made this for me, And what I come to kind of recognize, I thought this all the way along, but I've certainly been thinking about it a lot. But Todd Howard is as big a fan of Indiana Jones as I am, and I don't think that this game happens without Todd Howard.
I think that seems correct. Right.
Yeah, I think that this was the thing that he'd want to see made, and he probably recognized that it wasn't going to be at Bethesda's HQ that he was going to be able to assemble the team to put it together. I think that they went through a lot of processes. This is all conjecture to try to figure out where in their empire they could place the game, and they chose beautifully with Machine Games. And
they did. They sure did.
Yeah, and I was really concerned about the first person and how much I would feel like I was a part of the experience. And I was about halfway through the game, and it really just, I was moved by it and so impressed by it. But I really recognized just what a special, beautiful, ambitious, intelligent game that really celebrates education and thinking through things, and not just
history,
running into history, and the importance and the ripples of all of that, and honestly is just such a an homage and such a love letter to what Spielberg and Lucas put together. And then to see Jeff and his team bring Harrison Ford, and I talked to Craig about this actually.
On the stage,
yeah. But I before he did that, I said, listen, if you guys are working out any kind of thing with Harrison Ford to promote this thing, I would kill to be there. And I didn't go to the awards. I was like, I streamed it, and I was like, why didn't I go? I would have been able to, but I don't think he was meeting people. It feels like I didn't see any photos of him with anybody. And I've had one or two words with him on a carpet, but I've never really had time with him. But God, I just love the dude, and I love Troy Baker too. I've known Troy for a long time, and he's what a freaking crazy talent that man is. Man.
He is, and so he came on my show. We did an interview once, and I was like, hey, can you talk to me as Joel? Can you just channel Joel? And I'm the guy that went to Marvel Mania when it was open at Universal before Marvel took off, and it was like probably some 20-year-old kid dressed as Spider-Man, and I was like 30, but I was just like, it's Spider-Man. I'm talking to, I believe it, and I'm sitting there talking to Joel, and he's an insanely talented guy. And I wanted to ask you this down the road, but let me ask you this now then, since we're talking about Troy. I think everybody knows his performance was amazing as Indy. I have always said, as a massive fan, I have hated this idea that people seem to be like, Indy can only be played by Harrison Ford. I think that's stupid, especially given that Indy was originally inspired by James Bond, and Spielberg wanted to make a James Bond movie, and he made Raiders because he couldn't make a James Bond movie. It's like that's sort of how it works. You age out of the character. And I wonder now with Troy Baker coming in, and people going, okay, this is pretty cool. Do you think we're at a point? I know the Dial of Destiny didn't do very well, but do you think people would accept now another Indiana Jones actor like in a movie? Or do you think people are still like, nope, it's got to be Harrison Ford?
I think we've opened the door, especially with these deep fakes getting better and the technology getting better. I'm sure if there was going to be a character that Harrison Ford licensed his likeness to,
Yeah.
it would be Indiana Jones. And this marriage of Troy and Harrison Ford is the best honoring of the character. It isn't just it's a digital mask that the performance is kind of wearing, but it's also the character. And because we do see this character go to his final mission, there is this beautiful sort of arch, and they can fill it in. And I've absolutely been thinking about that. Not only do I think there should be sequels where we have Troy and Harrison Ford blend their performance together like we've got, but there should be animated work. And then when the technology is ready to do it, maybe Troy is in performance capture again, and we've got full on feature-length movies. The
People
thing that I
will get
really
pissed
want
at you, but I agree. When I saw them do that with Luke in the Grogu series, whatever, the fucking Mandalorian, I was like, give me young Han and Luke and give me an adventure with these two guys.
I honestly don't know why Disney is waiting on this. Just
the
do
fans
that.
hated it. When I tweeted it out, they thought it was like blasphemous. I'm like, what's the matter with you? This is, trust me, I'm in the theater in 1977. All of us wanted to see what Han and Luke and Leia did after the Death Star blew up before Empire. They probably went on all these great adventures. We could have that. But
well, even if they don't make it a live action and they just make it an animated thing that looks like as good as Indiana Jones the game does.
That's right.
That'll be super freaking entertaining. That would be an amazing thing to sit down and watch. It could be I just tweeted yesterday that I think Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor is perfect in that role.
I like the series. A lot of people hated that, but I thought it was a good show.
I liked a lot of the series, and there was definitely some shortcuts. There have been, but I love him, and it would be great to get a real movie like a Gareth Edwards, because I loved Rogue One. It would be great to have Gary Whitta and Gareth Edwards and Tony Gilroy just get together with Ewan McGregor and make us the best freaking Obi-Wan movie. And I don't know why Lucas doesn't just let us enjoy these prime characters that we still love, And
at the same time, though, we go
everything.
Yeah, but at the same time, we go back to that conversation point, which is like, when does the younger generation get anything of their own? Right. Which is not saying we're denying them that, but it does suck though that our kids' generation, like no kids are cosplaying Rey Skywalker at all. So
my daughter did.
Okay, well,
Rey's cool. Yeah,
I like Rey. I like the first two movies. Hated the last one, but the first two of the Abrams stuff was great, or whatever, Johnson and Raven. But okay, so Indiana Jones, and I agree. I love that he looks like Harrison Ford when Troy Baker is playing him. It's absolutely excellent.
But it's also got a Troy Baker quality to it too. You can like, when I heard the trailer, I'm like, that's Troy Baker. I heard it live and I went, oh my God, that's Troy Baker. So I can, because I've been around him. I've done panels with him and interviewed him a ton. And I'm like, that is freaking Troy Baker. And that's amazing to me, because he is still, he's embodying Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones, but he's got a truthful connection. He's not imitating him.
Right. He says, I should feel like Indiana Jones, not Harrison Ford. And
yes,
and let me tell you something. Raiders changed my life. Raiders got me into creative work. It changed everything. Where I lived, everything. Yep. Temple of Doom, up until this game, was the second best Raiders indie representation.
Story.
I didn't love the story as much, but I thought Indian Raiders felt like Indian Temple. And once you get to Last Crusade, it clearly, the creatives involved were maturing. They, he wasn't as edgy. He didn't have this kind of, you want to talk to God, let's go see him together, I've got nothing better to do. Like, he didn't have that kind of edge to him, right?
And shadow work in Raiders, like, everything looked rough. And it also looked much more like it was shot on location, even if they were sound stages. They were very judicious on the way that they let light in. And as everybody got richer and more successful and more prominent, they got more theme park. And that was in Indy. and in Star Wars, and you could
Yep.
feel that happen. And
you see it in Last Crusade. Last Crusade, I loved it, but it had a little bit of a sitcom.
Yeah,
like we'll go out of our way to be funny, even if this isn't really probably exactly the best creative choice for the character. And I heard an interview with somebody on the team, and I don't think it was Todd Howard. It may have been one of the Machine Games guys, but the fact that they recognized the difference in the Indiana Jones character, because they spoke to this in the first two movies, and then down the road, most people that's some real, you got to be a hard fucking core fan to really know what the fuck they're talking about. It's like, what do you mean it's the same character? It's like, no, they are different. And
it's like that Arkham level of obsession, like the Arkham trilogy. It's that same kind of like, we know everything about Batman backwards, and there's so much analogous connection to Arkham when I play Indy, and that's why I really want them to continue. Like I hope
sounds like they, you know, I mean, I don't know how successful it's been. I have no clue, and I guess they're going to wait for the numbers for PS5, but I would be so bummed. But hey, I'm so grateful, because what I was going to say is, like, and there's a particular scene in Great Circle where Indy and Gina are in the treasure vault of the Vatican. And it's where he fights the giant Nephilim, whatever, for the first time. Yeah. And I don't know what it was about it, but all the elements came together, and I said, this, just like the opening to Dial of Destiny, it's like, this feels like a proper Raiders of the Lost Ark sequel. And the fact that Great Circle, to me, is the second best indie story I've ever experienced. And I've read most of the books. I watched some of Young Indiana Jones. They did what Spielberg and Lucas could never do again after 1984 with Temple of Doom. At least that's how I felt. Like, I think this story, like, to hear Lucas go on about, well, we couldn't find a MacGuffin. It took a long time to find the MacGuffin. I don't know. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, what? I mean, I'm telling you something, Victor. When this motherfucker game has Noah's fucking Ark on chains being dragged through the desert by locomotives, that's classic 80s Spielberg. That's Close Encounters, Raiders of the Lost Ark era Spielberg, and these fuckers nailed it.
Huge, didn't it, at the end? Wasn't that just
what the fuck?
Stunning, like, wow, but it's so in keeping with the franchise. It was absolutely
it's keeping with part of it. The fact that, think about this, nuke the fridge, the spaces between spaces, aliens going back in time and having a chance to move in with Archimedes, like shit that people are like, what is happening?
Love the Archimedes, and I love the nuke the fridge, but going in between spaces and time and stuff,
there's a magic or a sweet spot between being able to find something that is in the zeitgeist of sort of culture or religion or history that we all kind of sort of know about, Noah's Ark, the Holy Grail, the Lost Ark, and it fits, and you step outside of that and it starts to feel goofy. So the fact that these guys were able to do that, I mean, when you saw that the big giveaway was Noah's Ark, and then the fact that it can fold space time like the fucking Enterprise or something, I mean, how they were able to pull that off, how somebody pitched that in a meeting and didn't get laughed out of the room and actually got it approved, and then they pulled it off. I mean, did you buy it? Did it work for you? It worked for me.
Yes, it did. But you mentioned something earlier about reaching out to Lucas with a smaller idea for Indiana Jones, and I think that would also work as well. Like, it would be cool to have peaks and valleys in the adventures that Indiana Jones goes on. Like the train sequence in Dial of Destiny doesn't feel like the epic, scale of going back in time, but it's a fantastic trip,
excellent.
Right? And I feel like Lucasfilm Games could make some, with this engine, with this team, maybe they splinter off, they could make some shorter games that are almost episodic in nature, that get us into that world and are very satisfying, even though they don't scale to the height. Because that's a flavor of indie too, because most of Raiders is a bunch of incredible vignettes. It's
very
sequences.
Episodic in some ways,
Right. And everything's a cliffhanger. They're doomed. No, they're not. They figure out how to topple a statue, and they go through the skeletons and they get out. And then he gets into a fight with a mechanic, and they're doomed again. No, they're not. He gets, the
propeller kills him. Yeah. The opening, I will disagree with you though. As a fan, I loved it. As a game player, I thought it was not a good way to open the game because it was
holding your hand.
It was holding your hand, which I get it's a tutorial, but it just if you strip away the nostalgia and you've never heard of Indiana Jones and you've come from the world of Tomb Raider or Uncharted or whatever, and you're like, this is just kind of it wasn't totally linear. I explored everywhere because for me as a kid, that was like me playing in the backyard at 10 years old. I got to actually go, what's past the waterfall where he's studying the two halves of the map. But for most people, I imagine they would go, this is just a very simple linear, and then to go from that to Marshall College to the Vatican, those choices are really, I'm glad they did them for the story. And it's like I said, my game of the year, one of my favorite games. But
yeah, they are a big ask for the player. You're right. I agree with you. Yes.
And I mean, would you have changed that if you were looking at it?
I think it's a perfect game, though. And it's because it speaks to me on a bunch of different levels. Like I haven't done the Rocket and Reagan Awards yet. I'm still sort of collating all of my thoughts and the video pieces and all that stuff. But I spoiled that it was my favorite game of the year. And I also said that I'm so pissed off that we've got these game awards, and I love Jeff and I love the awards. I think they're so profoundly important for our business, but it drives me crazy that they're more for marketing and less about like honoring this work, because we're going to go a whole year and we're going to get new Nintendo stuff and possibly Grand Theft Auto 6. And I don't think we're ever going to hear about Indiana Jones again.
The DICE Award noms just came out.
And they crushed it. Yeah.
They were great. They were great. And they're great because they do what you should do, which is, and I get it, you're right. It's the Christmas season. It's the buying season. What are you, nuts? Why would I have my awards in February? But the DICE Awards, I think, is a much better, and the GDC Awards are a much better actual barometer of what do we really think about this. I think most people tune into the Keeley Awards and they're wonderful, but they're not really looking at them as a barometer for what the best necessarily was that year. I think, I think
I think that in our world we are, but we know that. But the game, those awards reach so many more people.
They do,
and so
they should hire Jeff to also produce the DICE Awards. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Dick Clark of video games. Dick Clark produced a gajillion fucking things. Let him have his show and then, produce the DICE Awards. You won't make as much money, but
I pitched him on doing a nomination pageant, like a big awards, like a nomination show. Make that a show with live performers and have all the previews before the holidays, and then come back and then do the awards as a more tempered, like, let's get the developers up on stage and let's not hustle them through.
And what did he say? It's like,
it's a lot of work, and I get it. I know how much work it is.
I said, dude, you need to reveal the percentage votes. He says, oh, I'll never do that. I'm like, dude, it would be so fucking awesome. It's like Astrobot won by 2% or whatever. I don't even remember what was up against Astrobot, but that almost beat it, or it wasn't even close. He's like, I can't do that. But yeah, it's a great fucking game.
It's also like an 80s game too, right? Because of its intelligence and its adventure game kind of roots. It's very much like a historical. It's a game about history, and it also feels like history. It feels like classic adventuring,
puzzles. Let's talk about the
puzzles.
Puzzles in this game. Yes. When you talk about it being an ask for the player, and again, as a fan, as a gamer and a fan, I'm so grateful. And if you're watching and you haven't played it, I mean, this is not like Jonathan Blow's The Witness, but it's not Uncharted, where it's like, oh, if I pull these three levers, the shape line up and I solve the puzzle. It's like Lucasfilm adventure games in 3D. You're collecting pieces of pipes and having to align them to get the water flowing, or there's a puzzle with Jesus and you're having to figure out where the stigmata is on his body and how it relates to various parts in the chamber in order to open a door. And I'm like, how did they get this fucking thing approved? Like, how did from Craig's broken weed, because he's phoning it in, because
it's so different from every other game, right? Like, and it's such it is the theme. It is Indiana Jones. It's so true to the property. It's insane. and also in a year after Dial of Destiny comes out and does not do business, and people are like,
Right.
but yes, this is the most Indiana Jones you can make something,
Yes.
it's incredible.
And I wonder, I mean, I'm sure it's hit their bottom line, though. Everything from the opening to the fact that there are actual puzzles to the fact that the shooting I enjoy the shooting, but this is not a shooter at all.
No,
there are times you can use your revolver and every now and then pick up whatever the guns were they had back then that are, machine guns and stuff. But the vast majority of times you're punching and whipping and stealthing. I mean, what you've talked to these people. So do you have any insight on how do you get something like this by the powers that be?
I think the idea was the Dial of Destiny was going to be much bigger than it was. I feel like they really, because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did pretty good business. But,
critically not, but yes. Business-wise, yes.
Right, it did pretty good. And that's not the full barometer here. But what they did with the movies is they just waited too long. Everybody got too busy and too successful, and everybody wanted Harrison Ford in every other thing. And it just sucks because it's clearly the character he loved to play the most.
Yeah.
I think it's the character that many of his biggest fans love him in the most.
Yeah.
And it's sad that we didn't get him all the way along. Also sad that in this last few years we've gotten to know Ki Kwe.
Short round, yeah. Data.
Ki Kwe Kwan. Yeah. Who is just amazing in everything that he is in. He's just like everything everywhere all at once. I was like,
yes.
I had a chance to interview him too, and I was so pissed off because the timing didn't work. He was actually in Vancouver, and the whole directors and other actors, everybody was here, and they were like, "Okay, we want to get you." I was like, I was in LA or something, and I was so angry because I saw the movie and I was blown away. But I was so blown away by him. He was just.
He's great, and he was doing stunt work for a long time. So give us a fucking short round show, right?
Yes, I want to see short round in the indie universe, and maybe this way is like a Troy Baker, Harrison Ford collection of projects starts to happen based off of the success of this game. That's my hope. I really
have you heard anything about its success? I mean, I know
I've heard that phone calls have been made and that people
I heard that too, but so you think a sequel is coming? Like it was successful enough for that?
Well, here's what I know about games. I think that if you only go out once with something, you're not really sort of getting the most out of all of that work, because all of the things that didn't make it in that first one, the developers know how to employ that in that second one. And then if you're lucky enough to get that third one, and we saw that with Grand Theft Auto 3, we saw that with Burnout 3,
almost God of War always more successful because what you make the second time is what you wanted to make the first time, but you didn't know how to do it.
Exactly.
It happens all the time.
I think of like minecart chases and things like that. And, a future Indiana Jones game. Like people that are just modern players right now and don't really know the history of the indie movies or the importance of those movies.
Yes.
Talk about like between Star Wars and Indiana Jones, that is video, and Blade Runner, that is video games. Like that is it. Like every game took some inspiration from elements of those franchises and applied them into their craft over and over and over again.
It is true. It is true that the minecart, we had never seen, not never, but minecart chases was not something. And it became a sub genre after Temple of Doom. It was in every fucking video game.
Got
to have a minecart level. Okay. I was going to put the minecart in there.
I mean, we've never seen anything that, just wonderful on screen before, like that was so exhilarating sitting there. Well, how the hell did they shoot this? And then, we're watching Entertainment Tonight when it was actually good, and we recognized that it was like miniatures, and they shot it on a tiny little track, and it's just incredible craftsmanship.
I destroyed our VCR watching a PBS behind the scenes Temple of Doom, and I remember it was like they were showing the stop motion moving the what were they called, the thuggy guards in the mine carts, And and they had short round stretch between the two, and they were animating his head, and it blew my fucking mind.
Well, who else was watching that? Todd Howard.
Right?
Yeah, I was, and Todd Howard was, and that's why this game is.
And look where he is, and look where we ended up, Victor. What the fuck? We had the budget. We had the budget
okay,
version. We've done all right. We've done all right.
We've done all right.
Yeah. But okay. Do you think though that this character can really be relevant for a new generation, or do you think it's like,
it's
great? Right. Or it's like, when I was a kid, it was like, oh, it's like The Shadow. I'm like, who the fuck is The Shadow? And it doesn't mean the Alec Baldwin movie. I didn't see it, but people, or The Phantom or something, right?
Yes, I do. And
okay.
a great example of that is this game, but also when you look at the Batman, right? And Matt Reeves didn't really twist the dial too far away from what Christopher Nolan did. Right. And the character is incredibly important, incredibly famous around the world. Everybody knows. But he just stayed very true to the story craft of the best DC comics. And he built something that through indelible, framing and lighting and cinematography really represented the character in a wonderful way. And his choices were really smart. And I think if whoever is carrying the torch for Indiana Jones goes at it with that same sort of honest intention and really stays true to the roots of the character and I think oh God, I always want to call him Frank Darabont, but who's the director?
Mangold.
Yeah, James Mangold. I think he really did. I think it was a very intellectual, hard take on this, and he had a puzzle to solve with a 78-year-old leading man to figure out how to make that an authentic story. And I think he really, really did. But it's also a time period that's very uncomfortable for people. I think that there is a built-in ageism, especially in America, North America, but around the world, people just don't want to see an old guy in there. I just project a father figure, and I'm watching this guy kind of get out of that lounge chair and rise to the occasion and make decision after decision to try to be the hero that he once was and that he'd long ago forgotten. And I was so moved by this guy having to put all of his doubts and all of these shackles away. He thought his life was over and he found himself again. And
I mean, I think that's a very intellectual, emotional read of it. And I think in that way, you're right. That's pretty special and interesting. For me, though, Indy's always been James Bond. Like, I don't need to see James Bond dealing with where's my Metamucil, right? Even though I appreciate it as an arc, just like Kratos. People get mad at me because I don't like the new Kratos. I love what Corey did. I loved God of War 2018, but to me, Kratos was meant to be like Spider-Man, Indy, James Bond, pulp.
You want to see him in their prime.
I don't need to see the arc of a man who was a comic book hero. I just want him to always
be Logan, also Mangold.
I did, but Logan was I loved Logan, and until Dial of Destiny, by the way, Mangold, in my opinion, had never made a bad movie. Even like Night and Day with Cruise and Cameron Diaz. Right, I'm like, it bombed, but it was great.
With him. Drugging her over and over again, and she keeps waking up.
Yes, and
very weird.
It's a strange, but I mean, but so I shit. What was your question? I was thinking about Cameron Diaz and the bikini on the island. What was your question about Mangold?
About it being an intellectual choice.
Right.
I agree with you, and I think that I agree with you. And certainly I'm imbuing my own emotional connection to the character and the story and the history and the man all into that. But I think what they tapped into with this game is that, look, it was so pure, it was so on point, and it was perfectly, deliciously, crafted for us to kind of peel away different layers and be entertained by it. That's the way to do it. And whether it's a game or an animated series or a series where they get us closer to photoreal with the deep fake stuff,
right?
If they do it with that kind of intention and they keep us in that period or maybe a little bit older, I think they're going to have some real success with it.
What I read a book recently called The Last Action Heroes. It's from the same guy who wrote a book about all the SNL comedians. I forget what that one was called, but it was about like the 80s act, like Bruce Willis and Rambo and all this shit. Yep. And I don't want to get political, but anybody who watches my shit knows I can't stand Trump. I hate all that shit. But one of the things they said was they were talking about Reagan, and when Reagan was in office and the 80s, had a lot of shit that when you were a kid, you didn't know how corrupt it was. But as a kid, it was like, everything's great, money, and everyone's happy and all that, and how that affected pop culture. And I think when you bring up Batman, it's interesting because there definitely we've been going through a very dark part of our history, starting probably with 9/11, that it's just been sort of right on the front page for over 20 years of just how scary shit is. And I do think Batman had a home, and that's probably one of the reasons Batman really shone in that world. And I would love to think maybe if even though there's going to be all kinds of corruption that if you're over the age of 15, you don't like, maybe there is at least a lightness, because I think indie thrives more there. I think when you're in a culture where you can enjoy that sort of far away banana republic, meaning the store, not like an actual political place, but like, that kind of wonderful classic high adventure, you got to be in a headspace where, you feel safe to enjoy that. And I don't think indies had a home in that time period. Well, maybe he will now.
And the beautiful stuff and the beautiful work in the game is he's an educated man, and he's traveling around the world talking to people in different languages and with different cultural backgrounds, and he has deep respect for them, and he has a real understanding of their histories.
And he speaks their languages.
It's a beautiful thing to see, and I think that there is a parable. I think there's a bit of a connection between The Rocketeer, which was a Joe Johnston film and great series, and Captain America, which Joe Johnston also
great movie, yeah,
and he's from the first Avenger, and he's from that Spielberg school of filmmaking.
Yes, he worked on effects on a lot of that. He was an effects guy for Spielberg and Lucas. So
that's right. And so I think that there is a real connection between the I don't know, it's a pure-hearted kind of like you're going in as one of the best of us kind of heroes out there. And I hope that it feels like that's what we're going to see out of James Gunn's Superman later this year, which I
hope really so. I love Superman. I love that positivity of Superman. And I hope,
dude, it was Christopher Reeve as Superman, and Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and
we had it really good. And I don't mean that just because we're a couple of old guys talking about it. Everybody feels their generation because being a kid is easy compared to being an adult. But we did come up on a time when media was so, at least for my life, I can't speak to other types of people who may have been coming up with that media, but it was so bright. And it was so like, that's why one of the reasons people get mad at me when I see Starfield is one of my favorite games at a single player level, because it's so perfectly captured, for all the faults of the game. It's so perfectly captured that adventure sense of what is out there. And when you discover NASA in that game, and you go down and I literally went to every exhibit
on that. Yeah, I was pretty damn hooked too.
So it was a good time. I want to talk about real quick one more thing on this, and then I want to get some calls if you don't mind. Sure. The women in this game, because I know there was a lot of the kind of at first like, the DEI shit because the woman's hair or whatever. But I'm going to be honest with you though. I liked the Gina character very, very much in this game. Great. Yeah. She was great. In real life, she's a beautiful woman, and the performance capture, it does look kind of sort of like the actress. But don't you think I'm not fucking with you. If we had Elsa Schneider, we had Karen Allen as Ravenwood, Willie Scott, your mileage will vary, but certainly this woman should have been more of a sexy lady, right? I don't mean like a cabaret singer wearing a dress with her tits falling out, but she felt very, I need Indy to have
character.
I liked her too, but shouldn't she have been hotter? Is the question.
There was
Craig.
There was more of an intellectual connection between the two of them, and a sexual connection through their mutual respect. But he is pining for Marion in the game. And
he is.
I think it would undermine that whole idea that
that is very interesting.
He's still thinking about what he has screwed up, right?
Okay, so that's good. So you're saying that if she had been a more traditional leading lady like Elsa Schneider,
I would have felt shitty. I would have felt like, man, because I want him to be with Marion. I want him to have that love. Marion's and we see that she is in Dial of Destiny. So I would have felt like, you jerk. Why? No wonder you can't keep it together with her. So if they had just focused on her being his next conquest.
Right.
That would have been, I think, quite a bit lamer. I think she had some real motivations to try to get to the bottom of it. She had her own agenda, and she worked for herself quite a bit. She was independent, and she had, she was very cagey and very smart and sneaky a little bit, but also a great ally. And they end up trusting each other through the game.
She looked a little old, though, didn't she? They should have taken about 10 years off, because Indy, I think, is like, somebody told me Indian Raiders is like almost 40. I don't think so. I think Indiana Jones in Raiders Lost Ark is like 30, 31.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how old did you think Indy was?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm looking it up. How do you not? I mean, how old is Indy in Raiders? Let's see what it says. 38. He was almost 40. Fuck that. Nah, she's too old. Anyway,
so
the point is,
he was 38 because that's set in 38.
Indiana Jones was born July 1st, 1899, according to the lore.
37.
So 37 in 1936. So, okay. So what about the lesbian sister? I mean, that never would have been in Raiders or Temple or any of the mainstream. Of course, great. I don't care, but it does seem like, they made a choice, right? Good and well, there were discussions about the culture we're in.
I have no issues with any creative team ever.
Nor do I.
And I feel like if it's an overcorrection to try to bring people into these worlds, we need to do that. And it needs
because
to
we've been so poor doing it before.
Yeah, man. And how many people, like, how many movies have been Oscar nominated films that have dealt with repressed homosexuality,
right?
And people that have done wonderful things but couldn't be themselves. And what a goddamn
like
nightmare
E.T.
that would. Yeah, like E.T.
Did you see E.T.?
I saw E.T. Was he gay?
Yeah, right. Oh, okay. Super gay. Gay as the day is long. Yeah, but no, you're absolutely right. It's a very good point. But I wonder, do you think that was something?
Didn't think about it at all.
Okay.
Whenever I see this stuff, the only thing that ever flashes my mind is, that's going to upset somebody.
Right. And, that's what I thought. That's why I was wondering about your take on, do you think they had to struggle with this as a developer going, this is going to piss off a lot of people and it might hit our bottom line. Do you think?
Here's what I think. I think that there are a lot of people that are making a lot of money on television and on the internet right now, firing people up. And then those very same people that are so fired up watching this stuff have many, many friends that are homosexual.
Or trans.
Trans or from a different faith. And in their real life, their IRL, around them, they have some empathy. And it would be wonderful if they found the path to more empathy as they watch stories and features about people, and they watch leaders try to, bang drums to get people motivated in a hateful direction.
They were being manipulated. That would be great.
Yeah,
that would
be wonderful, right?
And
it would be wonderful if we could get to a point where we never thought about the inclusion of these different stories, and especially thinking about fictional tales as if they have to, like, I don't know, the DEI stuff that was erupting around Dragon Age. That was utterly baffling to me. This is like, there are elves in this freaking game, and you are concerned about identity in Dragon Age. Like,
the only real criticism I got from that game that made sense, because I'm not a big Dragon Age guy, is it didn't seem like a traditional Dragon Age game tonally. I'm like, okay, that I understand, but since I don't have that history, I didn't care. But I get that if you're like hardcore Inquisition player and you're like, this doesn't feel like my Dragon Age, I'm like, all right, that's a fair criticism. Okay, so here's what I'd like to do, Victor, if you're willing. I'm going to name 4 things from Great Circle I just thought were cool, and I'd love for you to name a couple that you thought were cool. Before I do that, I'm going to put the number on screen or the click on screen so you can call in and talk to Victor live. I will get these super chats as well. So here is, if you want to call in and be part of the show and talk to good Sir Victor Lucas, you can do that. It is right here. You don't have to be on camera, but you can. We'd love to see your pretty mug. And then I'll get the super chats in a second. Victor, here's some things I just thought were the coolest fucking thing about this game. I loved the it's a minor little thing. But there's a great book, you're probably familiar with it, called like Saving the Cat or Saves the Cats for screenwriters and stuff. But the gist of it is every movie that you want it to be a mainstream commercial success, the character has to, quote, save the cat, meaning in the first 10 minutes, they need to do something that's a metaphor for saving the cat, to showing that they're just like a nice, likable hero, right?
Oh, wow.
Okay. And they do this. Before. A whole series of screenwriting books on it, but they do this thing in this game that I just thought was so small but so delightful, which is when he packs to go see his friend in the Vatican, you can't leave.
He brings the record.
Taking the record and put it in the suitcase. It doesn't affect the story. There's nothing about it that pays off when it comes to Noah's Ark or anything like that. It's just a nice thing that Indy does for his friend, and then later you come into the office and he's like dancing to the record. I thought that was just a sweet little moment that most games wouldn't even think to do, and I just thought that was really cool. I thought the audio and lighting in this game were amazing, and there are times like when I would leave a tent and go out into the desert in the Egypt levels, and it was just like, a part of it is I have new headphones that are relatively good, but part of it's also just like, I just thought their audio in this game, everything from like starting up the motorboat in the later levels to obviously the punching and the whip sounds. I thought the audio was incredible. I thought the music was really good, but I think it kind of, it got so close to John Williams themes at parts that because it didn't deliver those last couple of notes, I'm so familiar with the Williams stuff that it was distracting. Like it would start to play almost like Marion's Love theme, and then it would go somewhere else, and it pulled me out, you know. But I still thought it was great music. And the last thing I'll say is the DLC that's coming. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to do this, but I thought it was very cool. If you play, you didn't have to, but if you played the adventure where later in the game with the blonde archaeologist that was Indy's student that betrays him. Yep. And she gets her arm cut off.
Huge spoilers.
Oh yeah, but I already told them. You know, but you don't even you could play the game and never have that experience. I think because I don't think you have to do that mission.
Oh really?
I think that's one of those side missions. I could be wrong, but and you think she's dead, and you find her severed arm, and they've carried her off. I'm assuming she's coming back like with a metal arm, like you know, like the old Raiders of the Lost Ark concept art where they had that kind of Doc Savage man of bronze shit. I mean, did you get that?
So Wolfenstein too. I would love that. That would be great.
Yes.
Those are all fantastic.
What were your moments?
I mean, I loved the all of those things, but also the subtlety in the facial performance of the merging of Troy and Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones was really breathtaking. Like and also the kind of, it's definitely a lighting based thing, but it really felt like noir. Like they really felt like one of the cool things that you can do. I talked about this in my review with Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I have an art director friend who always encourages me to do this, is to watch Raiders in black and white. You can go on YouTube and you can watch the whole or chunks of the movie on YouTube in black and white. And I think it was Douglas Slocum.
Yes.
That was the
first three movies he did. Yep.
And I think maybe it could have been budgetary wise or whatever, you know, wherever they were in their headspace, but the lighting in Raiders is perfection.
Yes.
And it's perfection for a number of reasons, but one of them is that it looks like it's from the 30s, legitimately. And I think this game does too. And I'd never really played through a AAA experience like that before. Like I was really transported when Indiana Jones and Gina I make it to, I think, Thailand. And they're by, he has to make a phone call back to Marcus.
Oh my God, yeah.
Just the shadows on his face, and he keeps turning around. He gets, the guy sort of
that whole, whatever that little hotel they were staying in was, it just, you could, and it sounds, I'm not being romanticizing it here, but you could almost smell it. It was so evocative.
Yes.
The way it looked and sounded, and it was very, you're absolutely right. It was a great moment.
I love the educational sort of love letter that it is too. I love how intelligent he is, how he'll stop and explain a thing, and it's exposition for sure, but it's filling in stuff you as a player may not need to know, but that's Indiana Jones. That's what he does.
Well, he's excited about it, right? He's always teaching, and so when he expresses it, it doesn't feel like dude, why are you just spewing history lessons? Because he's a fucking history professor. Shut the fuck up. That's what he does.
I would love them to make like a Raiders of the Lost Ark game. Like I would love them to
I
go
would
through that
too,
whole
and
game.
expand it, right? So you could have different experiences, but built off. You think this story is strong enough to be a movie? If they were to, I mean, I agree.
Shit, yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. But and the other thing that I really wish that Machine Games and Bethesda and Lucasfilm could work out, and I guess Warner Brother or Alcon, whoever owns the rights to Blade Runner, but they have this perfect marriage of Troy Baker being able to be this actor and the technology. Make us a Harrison Ford Han Solo game and make us a Harrison Ford Blade Runner game, and let us have those things we've dreamt about for our whole lives.
You and I are right there, man. The audience will probably hate it. Not the buying public, but people on the internet will tell you it's sacrilegious. But I think you're absolutely right. I think you're right.
Like Rick Deckard Adventures, where we get to go and see what drove him to go to the noodle bar and just give it up. Like he's done.
Yeah.
Like how did he get
Tell
to there?
him I'm
Let's
eating.
see that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Super
man.
chats and then phone calls. Are you good on that, Victor?
Let's go.
All right, here we go. Let me move this out of the way. Thank you guys for all the support on the show. Very much appreciated. K-Nubs has gifted a membership to the channel. Thank you, buddy. Film Gamer X says, I'm really enjoying the chat. I did want to mention I'd really love to see an open world video game set in the Tarantino universe. Stay awesome, Jaffe and Victor. That would be odd and wonderful and odd because so much of his stuff is about talking that once the shoot bang bang dies down, you've got to figure out how do you capture that interactively. But
he's so analog and such a control freak. I would never see him sort of embrace games to begin with. Or embrace creative direction in his universes without him. That's right. I don't think he knows much about video games. I don't think he's a fan or anything. I've never heard him talk about games. That would be a fascinating conversation, actually. If I ever do,
I could sell him. I just say there'll be a lot of feet. There'll be a lot of feet in there, and he'd show up. Jojo D, thank you, buddy, for the super chat again. He says it's strange that the Great Circle has done so well. Even Jaffe stated that he couldn't see how a new gen could appreciate indie in this day and age. What other Gen X experience can the modern kids enjoy? I mean, trust me, Joe, they've tried, right? I mean, they've tried to mine everything from my childhood and Victor's. I was talking to Colin Moriarty about this yesterday. The Transformers G.I. Joe movie coming from Spielberg and Michael Bay is probably one of those. I mean, obviously Transformers, but G.I. Joe has not been really brought up to the new generation. What do you think is a good brand?
They haven't done enough with games. They haven't done with the technology that's existed for the last 8 to 10 years enough in this space. And one of the things that
wait, what do you mean? You mean making movies or making games on those
games based on these properties that we know and love?
Okay, what would you think?
Well, Blade Runner is the first thing that comes to my mind. I mean, Blade Runner is as influential to the video game, medium as anything else out there. And we've never had a proper third-person Blade Runner action-oriented experience. We've had an adventure game,
right?
That did all right, and I think there have been, some other side ideas that have happened. And I know the movies haven't been blockbusters either, which sort of.
Do you think the audience for Blade Runner would accept an action main game? I mean, I know that there are action sequences, but it is a thinky brand, right?
It's a detective adventure game with tons of action. I mean, it's very much in keeping with what Indiana Jones just delivered. It's very much a dissection on this idea of integrating with AI beings, and that's very pertinent to today.
That's right.
Right. I think that would be incredible. Similarly, we never got a great Battlestar Galactica game that didn't take us out of spaceships and got us into the world, and we have Cylons living among us. I think that would be incredible. We've never really had a true Tron immersion.
Oh, right? Yeah.
We've had some cool-ish attempts, but never like a Arkham caliber Tron game.
What did you think of RoboCop, the game?
Great.
Yeah.
And that's another one that underlines that this is the way to do it. Make it as much, a familiar path down the property as possible. Spider-Man works because we've got all of the other iterations of Spider-Man. Like Insomniac built their own, universe with a character that has many interpretations, and it worked great.
Yes.
But it would also work great if they went and made us a full Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi experience again with modern technology, because Spider-Man 2 was excellent.
Yes, they're the best one, I thought. I think a lot of people think it was. I wanted to recommend a game to you. I don't know. Do you play much on PC or it's mostly console?
I play on PC and
right.
On the handhelds all the time.
Okay, so anybody watching the show, I can't find it. I was looking for it. We played it on stream, but it is a beautiful looking Unreal 5 Blade Runner inspired detective game that came out this year, and you're using all this kind of cool tech to sort of be a detective and solve these murders. It's got a very cool sort of Alan Wake writing board kind of way that you put clues together, but it's also incredibly good look. If anybody can remember, you guys let me know so I can recommend it to Victor, because I know, and if not, I'll just send you a link or a DM, because I think you'd really like it. But I hear you.
Came out in 2024.
Came out this last year. Yeah. Okay. JB Blaze, thank you so much for becoming part of our community. Join the Diet Soda Soldiers. Thank you, JB. In fact, I just got a text from Victor saying he would suck cocaine out of your butthole with a straw, JB. Thank you, buddy. Joe Munger, thank you, sir. I can only be serious for so long, Victor. And then Joe Munger, thank you, buddy. He says, for the very generous super chat, he says, sup, guys, great pod. Thanks, bud. Warped Eye, 10 months. Thank you. One of the things I love about the game, Indy, was the grunts Indy makes when he climbs up.
Yeah,
I liked that too. I played a game recently where I was a ninja, or Indy climbs so fucking slow in Great Circle though. When he climbs up the whip, I'm just like, come on, fucker, let's go. And then last week I played a game where it was a ninja doing it, and it was so delightful. She was just like, and she's right to the top. But that wouldn't be Indy. But I appreciate that, Warped Eye.
Did you play Arkham Shadow in VR?
No.
Talk about a licensed game that does a beautiful job at letting you embody the whole thing. Indy also delivers a bit of a VR vibe too. It also feels
feels like you are Indy.
Yeah. I bought a 65-inch TV, and I've only got a pretty small space that I play games in. And so I upgraded from a 55-inch, and it felt like I put a headset on. It was so big all of a sudden. It was amazing.
When people first heard Indy was going to be first person, I was thrilled, but a lot of people were apprehensive. But because I love that was their take. I want to make the player be Indy. I don't want you to watch Indy. I want you to be Indy, which I fucking loved. Okay. Designer, by the way, Vigilante 8 is here. Goodrich Games. Thank you for the super chat. He says, hello, fellow olds. Hello, you fucking motherfucker. Living Legend. Thank you, buddy. Shout out to my favorite Canadian video game journalist. I grew up watching EP back in the early 2K Toronto. You made my middle school childhood Vic. Nice, Living Legend. Benji Udden, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate it. Very, very generous and kind. Thank you. And then One Pump Man lines it up, makes nothing what I just said. He wraps it up. He doesn't line it up. And I'm honest enough with you to admit I made a fucking mistake. Most people would just go on with it, but no. Yeah. He says the snake level freaked me out. Oh, and Indy, the boss. I thought so too.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Culticalypso. Jaffe, the game is called Nobody Wants to Die, is the game that you should look up on Steam. Nobody wants to die. Okay. He says, Victor, you rock, brother. Okay, let's bring in a couple people who want to talk to you live. We'll start with Nathaniel. You're on the stream, Victor.
Hey, Nathaniel, JBJ, how you doing?
Oh, it's JB. JB Blaze. What's up, man?
Good to see you.
You're muted, though. You're muted.
You're mixing the worlds.
Did you talk to him on your show a lot?
Yes.
More or less.
Yeah, he's the best.
Excellent.
Still happily, ecstatically remember the day that I finally got to meet this man after over 20 years of watching him in my grandmother's basement with my brothers on our TV. Electric playground. Super clean, really. And
okay.
I mean, he and Tommy weren't always clean. I mean, they only just started finally airing their EP Classic episodes where they actually had to add in bleeps the odd
That's
time.
right. That's right.
Yeah, that was
When you met Victor, how did you eventually get to meet him in person? What was that like? What would you do?
So I'd been keeping up with tweets from Fan Expo Canada. No, it was Victor Lucas here actually who announced his presence was going to be there, and I hemmed and hawed about it for 3 weeks before finally.
Why did you hem and haw about it? I thought you were a fan.
Because of affordability.
Oh, that's fair. Okay.
Yeah, and I thought, you know what? Screw what I think I can or cannot afford, because if I missed out on this, because Victor Lucas, you had FOMO over missing out on Harrison Ford at the Game Awards.
Sure.
And I knew I'd have that same bloody feeling if I somehow missed out on meeting the man who is part of what made my childhood and why I still play video games to this day. I mean, hence play forever. And I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to pay for the ticket. I'll pay the extra expensive train ticket. So my first time ever on a train, because I hadn't even been on one back when my grandmother took my brothers on one. And finally made my way up to Toronto, got up extra early, much to my parents' behest, because I otherwise have difficulty getting my arse up in the morning for work. And then I'm just trying to find my way through the Toronto Metro Convention Center.
So you appear in front of Victor for the first time, and what do you say to him?
Actually, funny enough, he's the first one to speak up. He goes, JBJ, and I thought,
oh, you recognized him. Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
JBJ's on my streams all the time.
Okay.
And he's been in the Rocket and Ray Guns the last few years, it feels like. So
excellent. Okay.
I've cut his work and put it into the show.
Very cool.
I appreciate his support everywhere I am, which is just incredible.
You guys speak of Batman Arkham Shadow, by the way. I am in the process of cutting together my own video for this year's Rocket and Ray Gun Awards, of which, spoiler alert, that's my pick.
Nice.
For one of my favorite games. And so cutting that together with basically, okay, what other things do I want to bring up? Because I want to make sure I deliver this man the full package. So,
sorry, that was just me. That was just me. Yeah. What is the number one thing you love most about Victor Lucas? I have two questions.
Oh, man. Okay.
Oh, so it really comes down to his passion, in that there are things I'll watch, not really watch, but I'll bid witness to how other critics feel about a video game or movie or TV show.
Right.
And while thankfully I don't always agree with your takes, Vic, which makes me all the happier, because I once tuned into an echo chamber in my college days, and my God, thank God I got out of that. And so 'twas your passion and your love for
I'm sorry, wait. Did you just say 'twas?
Yes, sir.
Okay, carry on.
You just flew his mind there.
Yeah, carry on, JB.
I mean, it's other Shakespearean crap I tried to pull.
No, that's okay. We can however you want to speak. Feel free. Continue, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, sirs. And so from there, it's that even when other critics don't like something, that, oh my God, Victor actually liked it. This is so delightful to see. And even when it's something like, say, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League,
which I thought was great. And did you like that? Or no, Victor didn't like it?
No.
Yeah. Did you like it, JB?
One of my best friends decided it was going to be his no-life game until, Sea of Thieves comes to PlayStation 5.
Gotcha.
That becomes his no-life game.
Okay.
And now Marvel Rivals. And as for me, it was, this gameplay is so solid from the playtests that we can, after all, speak about.
Yeah.
And I loved where the story was going. And then, now, the ending didn't rub me.
Sure, I got you. But okay,
others.
no, it was a very enjoyable film. And then the other thing I want to ask you before I let you go, but thank you, JB, for calling in. And I agree with you about Victor. And look, Victor to me is always the guy I look at and go, you know, it must be nice to have your healthcare paid for, so you don't have to get down in the mud with the rest of us capitalists. Because you can make so much more money in this business if you do the echo chamber thing. And Victor is the guy that is just like, you know what, man, he's happy about things. And it doesn't mean, look, I like when I can talk to Victor and get to the beyond the candy coated shell, because he's not always happy.
Nope.
You know, but he does
watch my Joker 2 review.
He celebrates the good more than he bitches about the bad. And we need more of that. So I'm with you, JB, on that. Now, last thing, JB, do you resent your grandmother for not taking you on the train? Because she clearly took the other grandkids. Why were you left out?
I'm pretty sure I was too young, because my brothers are each about approximately more or less 2 years older.
Okay, so it wasn't she didn't love you the same way.
Yeah, I was just
got it.
I
was the forgotten one
for that, right?
I was worried. All right, JB, thank you, buddy. Good to talk to you. Good to meet you, sir. All right. Let me bring on John. John, you are on with good sir Victor Lucas.
What's going on, boys? How you guys doing tonight?
Oh, hey, it's John. Oh, hey, man.
Just actually did tweet out, or retweet it rather, both of you guys with your letting everybody know that, you know, Victor Lucas and David Jaffe are going to be talking together. I just didn't know if the internet was able to handle that amount of awesomeness. You know what I'm saying?
Well, thank you.
And I got my Zelda shirt on.
Nice.
Right on, bro.
Post-workout Yontov. Just trying to catch my breath. And they got the Steam Deck and the 8-bit do.
What are all the lights back there? What's going on with your Steam Deck?
So, you know me, Vic. I tinker, and I put an entire new back panel on here.
Oh my God, that's awesome!
An extra air vent, so the airflow goes out.
Cool.
Oh, that's great. Is it making it faster?
You know, I try to make it as cool as possible. You know me. It doesn't speed it up or anything. I did take out the NVMe and put a brand new one in. So nice. I do got 2 terabytes in there. The read write was almost tripled from the stock drive, which is nice because I repurposed that into an NVMe card for my Series X. So
that's awesome. John's jumped into he's always on the chats and watching the streams and stuff. He's like he's human Google as well, and he's always dropping news as I'm streaming something. He drops it into the chat. It's like, oh that's my cool. God, this happened today. But he also has jumped in to play online with me while I've been sucking in a video game, and he's like totally covered my ass and made sure that I stayed alive. I remember that in Battlefront 1, right? That was an amazing time. Yeah.
And we also did Shredder's Revenge, which then prompted me to drive like a quarter mile or more to get to a Papa John's because I needed pizza like so bad.
Oh, you had to get it. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Do you have a parasocial relationship with Victor, and does it bother you?
No, I mean, I like Vic. He's a great dude, honestly. Yeah. And what I really like about Vic, it's the unbridled, like, yes, I am in the industry, but I'm going to tell it as it is. Like, I'm not going to review it for someone else to read it, and then they take the credit for my work at the end of the day. And, you know, I'm sorry, I'm kind of giggling a little bit because I saw one comment that said he's the oldest young dude I saw it too. And look, you have to respect, John, the fact that when I have a guest on like you and Victor, I try so hard not to let my ADD take over. But all I got to know is you have a filter on, don't you? Me? No.
Oh, my God. You do. You look like a young old man. Like you have no wrinkles at all. But you've got the gray beard.
What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, when you do that, you look like Toby from the West Wing. But when you don't do that, you know.
Look at all the gray.
Not you, Victor. This guy, John.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's funny because
no, Victor, you're aging normally. Don't worry about it. You know.
Okay, all right.
That's that Canadian age.
John is the oldest young guy.
Yes. Yeah.
Apparently I didn't pre-order. That's why the hair didn't come with the.
It happens. It happens. Yeah.
Big brains. But for me, it's just the unbridled honesty. Yes, he gets code sent to him. Yes, he gets hardware sent to him early, but he's not going to hold back. And if you watch reviews from Vic, whether it be, and yes, no, this isn't a cheap plug for Xbox on my Apple Watch.
I love Xbox, man. I think this generation's been really cool.
Yeah. What I like though is just he's just not going to hold in punches. He's not going to. If he loves it, if he thinks it's shit, he's going to tell you the truth, and that's what I love about it. And to be honest with you, it kept me from seeing Joker 2, but I'm very thankful.
Oh God, I there was a desire to see Joker 2 to begin with.
Well, I mean, because
I like the first one. Did you not like the first one?
I only saw clips and I liked it a lot, but everybody said, everybody said Joker 2 is just, don't go to that.
It's insufferable.
Yeah.
It's horrendous.
Okay.
And it's really sad because we're coming off of a, Oscar worthy performance in the first one.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
right.
We go to this. It's like, it is what it is. But you guys were talking earlier about, just trends in the industry and the talk about, DE&I and, lesbian characters or the innuendo. And I remember, Vic, when you were doing the Game Awards live and they showed off Witcher 4, and then within minutes, I told you already, people were like freaking out, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was the story. First off, the story was always about her.
Yeah.
She was always
the game looks absolutely incredible, and so does the character. I can't freaking wait for that, man. That game looks absolutely wonderful.
They also bitched about Intergalactic, dude. I mean, in Intergalactic, it's like, how are you mad? It's fucking Naughty Dog doing sci-fi action adventure game. What's wrong with you?
Yeah,
but,
and it's like people like that are offended by, ashamed of nothing but offended by everything. And it's just like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
And what I will say is, it just drives me nuts because an insanely great developer like Naughty Dog, they could literally make, paint dry simulator. And I'm going to buy it. I'm going to fucking love it. It's just going to be great. And we're all going to love it. We're all going to buy it. Vic and I tell each other all the time, I'm not buying The Last of Us Part 1 again. And what do? We buy it on our PC so we can play it on our Steam Deck. And we're going to keep buying it because it's great. And Intergalactic is one of those games where I just absolutely cannot wait to check it out. But one of the things that really drives me nuts is just, just the reaction it's gotten is unnecessary. There's absolutely no reason for it. I've
had the privilege, and I don't know if a lot of people have. They watched videos of studios, and there's a lot of disbelief around that, because a lot of that is built with the idea to market something.
Yeah,
and people can see through that, and there's so much of that in our social video content now. Anyways, there's so much branded stuff hurled at us all the time. But I've been to these companies and I've met these people and seen the work and talked with them. And I think of that when I talk about the games all the time, and I also think about the ridiculous amount of optimism and ambition that it takes to make anything. And, I've had large teams that I've worked with, and I don't think people are justified in thinking anything they want with a commercial product, for sure. But I don't think that people think all the way through about the human sort of involvement to make these things. It's so analog the way that, or binaries. It's all awesome or shit, and that's not the reality. There's something to learn from all of it, and there's just something to respect about the creative ambition out there. I was on a set yesterday, and it may not be the best television show that is on the air.
The Super Mario Brothers Super Show? What?
No, I've seen the first season of it. It was really good. But what I got from visiting the set, and I can't talk about what it was, but what I got was just the joy and the effort and the craftsmanship, because we went to the costumes, we went to the props and saw the sets being built in the construction area and everything. It was an unbelievably cool access to all of it. Talk with the actors, and it was just amazing. You could see the family that it takes to make this massive project, and it was an honor, and I don't think anybody thinks about that. We are so, also, as David and I talked about, we're so inundated with entertainment choice that everything is disposable. Everything is streamed to us, so there's no effort to get anything anymore, and so nothing has value. It's such a weird thing that we're in right now. Nothing has value, and people, will watch people stream in these hundreds of thousands of people watching a person stream a video game, and they won't watch a Star Wars show because people hate Star Wars now. It's just a weird kind of phase that we're in right now, but they're, I think, forgetting the effort that it takes to build us.
I mean, I will push back on that a little, which is, I don't think that, I think you're right about everything you're saying.
Yeah.
But I also don't think it's their job to care, and it shouldn't be.
No,
right?
No,
I mean,
no.
The work needs to speak for itself, or it can't. And that's part of what the work is. But I agree with you, as somebody who has made games and been on sets and all these things, there are two different stories happening. There's the creation, which is a beautiful thing, even if the end goal does not meet the target. And then there is the end goal. And the average person, I wouldn't ever ask them to care about the process, because they're not paying me for the process. They're paying me for the end goal, right? But I do also agree that everything you've said is true.
I mean, I grew up with that, and you did too, right? That's what got you into that field. I grew up with behind the scenes stories being incredibly inspiring for me. And
it was a little more honest back then. I'm not saying it wasn't manipulative. I'm not saying it wasn't PR, but like when you talk about, or when I talk about the PBS behind the scenes, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, there was a show back on Nickelodeon hosted by Leonard Nimoy called Lights, Camera, Action. And the interviews were actual. I'm not saying there weren't PR people hovering, but it wasn't like it is now. It was more like, hey, let's talk to the prop guy on the Sean Connery Never Say Never Again movie about how they made the pen. And it was like, okay, there's a craftsmanship angle. Now you'd never get that guy in front of a camera because the PR people would say that person's not important. Let's go talk to this person. They've got a movie coming out, and so I think it is different now. And so maybe what we grew up with behind the scenes was a little, when you agree, it was a little bit more authentic, and now
everybody's gotten so bloody sophisticated, but at the same time, and I think this is why YouTube has really, blossomed and been so important for people too, is it is kind of like the zenith of reality TV. It is so lo-fi and it's so in pockets, so authentic, although that's being manipulated as well. That there is a refreshing quality to that as well. But it also speaks to the fact that we have so many things to take our time every day, and a lot of great work, whether they're in games or movies or comic books or whatever, that takes real effort from a whole bunch of people, is just being overlooked and forgotten. And discoverability is a major problem for everybody. Yes. And part of that, I think, discoverability problem is that there are no stories about these people building these things.
That's interesting. So you think the actual nature of, if the behind the scenes was brought more to light in a certain way, people might be less cruel and more open to experiencing their work? Interesting. I've never thought of that.
I mean,
and that's the thing too,
David, I lived that, man. I mean, that's the job I've had, like I've heard from developers out in the field that have told me, and I didn't know this, but when you're on TV for 20 years and you're reaching lots and lots of people with stuff, you show them a world that they don't have access to, when they're at home, and then they get inspired to, like, well, that place is in a city I'm not too far away from. Let me reach out to them. Maybe they would hire me. And what happened is a lot of people would watch our show and then they'd go and get jobs in game studios, and
I am so conflicted by what you're saying, because on one hand, I think it's quite beautiful. And on another hand, I think it's quite manipulative, because I remember when I was working at Sony and we had TV cameras coming in, and one of the programmers was like, hey, this is a big opportunity. Let's really sell this and make, we could really make people excited about working at PlayStation. And I'm like, but that's a lie. I'm like, I'm not saying
the special editions.
I'm not saying it was a lie that it wasn't fun to work at PlayStation, but I'm like, why don't we just work and they film it? And if somebody's inspired by the reality of it, cool. But I don't want to sell an image because it's fabricated. But at the same time, I think people need, one of the things I've learned a hard lesson doing YouTube stuff is that people, there's a great quote and I'm going to misquote it, but the gist of it is people don't want to be told the truth. They want to be told what they think is the truth. And in that, there's a lot of success you can find. And I struggle with that all the time because it's so clear what people want to hear.
Well, the work is the road to the truth. The collaboration and those moments of pushing the rock up the hill and together and it's working. That's the truth. That's what you're fighting for. And it's worth celebrating. It's worth communicating about it. Because I think that,
But do you think when you add background music and cutaways to sell it more, it ends up romanticizing something that sells a fiction that if someone goes and chases that, they're going to be nothing but disappointed?
I think people are very honest with their discussion around how much work it is all the time.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to capture that authentically. It's really hard to have the camera be there in that moment of. And I believe that God of War did do that a little bit.
They tried. I hated it. I hated that fucking documentary, Raising Kratos. I thought it was crap. The only thing I loved about it was a shot when Corey was in his car and he held the camera up, his cell phone, talking about a play test he was nervous about. And I'm like, that's authentic. Right. That's the real experience. But when there was a moment where Shannon, and I love Shannon to death, one of my favorite people who exist on this planet, but when she was talking about missing out on her kids and this, like that, and I think it was Yumi that was starting to tear up or whatever, and it cut to a close-up, and then there was music in the background, I'm like, I don't want that. I don't need you to tell me how to feel. If Yumi was tearing up, you didn't have another camera there, because I know what the budget was. This wasn't a multi-camera shoot. You went back in, kind of like the end of broadcast news, and you got that shot, or you digital pushed in because your resolution was high enough that you could get a 2-shot. And I'm like, don't fucking lie to me and don't lie to the people. And then people come online and they get mad at me when I poke holes in this shit and they don't want me ruining the fun. And I get it. It sucks to be that guy, but I know how the fucking sausage is made and it's not like that. And
I gotta play the villain somewhat in our lives.
You did it for long enough that you had those moments of you're enjoying the sausage.
You are absolutely right. And if what you're saying is you can justify it by going, this moment may not be real, but I understand that the essence of the moment is real enough in that it was experienced in the making of.
Right.
That I think I could live with. I could live with that truth.
And then,
that's fair.
And to see the great success and the lives affected by the work that everybody put into something.
Yes.
And how that registers to the point where people are watching and care enough to watch the behind the scenes and want to be a part of all of that. I think that's what it's about, man. I think a lot of people are forgetting that it takes this much craft and this much collaboration to move the needle, to really make something of value and maybe have that one hit in a career that matters. But the work is the effort it takes to finally have that thing.
That's right.
Get there,
that's a very good point. And it's also that Steve Jobs graduation quote about you can only connect the dots looking back. It's not until you get to a certain age in your life where you do like when you're saying you're on TV for 20 years, you're only now probably just like me with the games I got to work on, starting to see the ripples of this stuff. And it comes back.
It was the guy that was running the studio. I think it was Nathan Vella who said, "Are you kidding?" He said, "You've impacted so many people with your show. I had never even considered that."
That's right. Nor have I.
And you've and I never, but he said a lot of people that are working here have watched the show or grew up on the show or whatever and wanted to make games because they saw all of that stuff. I will tell you though, and we were in rarefied position to be able to be the only show like that, really visiting studios all the time. And it's really, and now I'm re-experiencing the shows every weekend, right? With the classics and how valuable that is. John, you're part of that viewership as well, but like every week they're not all, every interview is awesome and every game is awesome that we're talking about. Every week though, there is some revelatory moment that we were there capturing, and none of
It
that is
typically
happening
revolves
anymore.
around what sweater Vic is wearing that day in the filming.
I'm always wearing the same damn sweater.
The
But they're
Vancouver
like,
Canucks colors.
totally. But we're always visiting these teams and these studios that are gone, and sometimes the people are gone, and the game was either massive or it was almost massive, and I feel like we don't get that at all anymore. It's all.
I think some of the better ones for me personally were the Bungie documentaries when they were doing,
yes,
when Halo started coming up, because just for like transparency, Vic, you know this, but Dave, you're not unaware. But for me, I'm a data analyst in QA, so I work in big data. And even though I'm not like developing games or anything like that, code is code. And regardless if you're like, coding an animation for your desktop or you're coming up with a SQL script to generate results for billions of lines of records, coding is coding. And what I love about those documentaries is that you can actually see them doing the triaging. You can see them going into Remedy or TTS, as some systems know it as. They're looking at bug fix tickets. They're talking with people who were in the user research groups, who were in the think tank, who were literally standing on top of a warthog, completing a test script. That's basically, you have your test scenario, jump on this warthog 1,500 times.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there with a camera in your face like this, just to see people's reaction, and also recording that data in real time. Anybody who is easily offended or complains like that doesn't understand the SDLC or the STLC. The difference between the two is one is the software development lifecycle, and the other is the software testing lifecycle. And it's very easy to go out there and complain about things and nitpick little things simply because you saw a streamer who gets the benefit of the doubt of the algorithm pushing that content forward. Because I think that was one of the things about The Last of Us Part 2 that got a lot of heat. They created some really great they really did create some really great behind the scenes content for it. The making of the game, et cetera, and so forth. But there were streamers who got to a certain sequence with a golf club, got, butthurt over that. And
or they didn't, and they were more insidious, and they saw the opportunity to present being butthurt.
Yeah.
Which is even more disgusting.
Jokes on them because they bought it anyway. It's
it's a great game. Excellent game.
It's a fantastic game. It's a generational game for sure. And what I loved also about all that is just seeing like all those little things going on behind the scenes and seeing early beta, or in Halo 2's instance, seeing Ed Freeze go to Robbie back saying, "Hey, I need another year for Halo 2. We got to scrap the whole project." Yeah. That I've been a part of things like that where we've had to go back.
But you are aware, John, that wasn't the moment that happened. You don't tell me that they got that on video and they allowed cameras.
Oh yeah, no.
It was recreated. Am I right, Victor?
Yeah. There would be a language that couldn't make the box set. It was already M-rated. It's going to get hit something else because when you got to go to
Jonathan,
SCPs,
the youngest looking old man I've ever met.
Hey,
I'll be
40 in 2 weeks.
40's
I don't
great.
remind my mom of that though.
No, I've enjoyed getting older. I thought I never thought I would fear it, but I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I have. I'm actually
going to do
much of a shit to begin with. Good for you.
I'm going to do it, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, Dave. I'm sorry.
No. At least you're not talking about like software STP, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. So, all right, John, thanks, buddy.
Former game developer, right there.
Yeah, and that's how the programmers dealt with me too. I would just be like, I just want Kratos to climb the mountain. It's like, well, you've got to. I'm like, I don't care, man. Just make it do it. Make it do the fun stuff. All right, Victor, that's the show, man. Listen, you've given us so much of your time today.
That was really fun.
I thought so too. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I'm going to chop it up and put it all over. But what a fun conversation, man. I always love talking to you. When I masturbate tonight, I'm going to think about the cocaine in the butthole and the straw. If that's okay, can I?
That's TMI. That's amazing.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Was it too much?
Twas TMI. Yeah,
twas.
Yeah.
But seriously, Victor, be safe out in the world. Thank you for all you do for us, and thanks for talking indie and everything else with me.
You rock, bro. You going to be in the Rocket and Ray Guns this year?
I don't know what that means.
Shoot me a video.
I would love to. Show. No, I know what that is, but what do you mean? Am I going to be in it? What do you mean?
Yeah, you got to shoot me a video. I'll send you a DM.
Send me the information. I would love that. Okay. All right.
Great.
Thank you, Victor. Audience, stay on. I'll talk to you guys in a second. All right. There goes Victor. Oh, there he goes. All right, fellas. That's our show for today. What fun. Victor and I are going to go ride a tandem bicycle, man. I'm excited for that. Tech Protect, anything we missed? We got everything, all the super chats. Thank you, new members. Welcome. Very generous. All the great comments. Thank you. It was great to have people call in. Always great to talk to Victor. What a good human being. I dig that fella very, very much. Let's bring John back on because he's still in the room. Hi, John.
Hello, sir.
Why are you still here? It's like the end of Ferris Bueller.
I know. My basically, it's my iPhone giving me pushback. I'm going to quit in just a minute.
You don't have to. You can stay on all night if you want. If I wake up at 2 a.m., I'll check. Stay as long as you like. Just make sure you turn the light off when you leave.
Oh, if you insist.
All right, buddy. All right, seriously, fellas. And JB Blaze, thank you, buddy. That's the show. I'm off to eat dinner and chill a little bit, play some video games. Maybe I'll stream some Rivals. We'll see. It's only 8 o'clock here in San Diego. Regardless, though, be well, be safe, and thank you for all the support. Cantanker says, how about a war story about the documentary? Thank you for the super chat. Give me a specific. What do you mean? Hit me up in DM on the Twitter or the Discord. Let me know what you're talking about. A war story. I mean, I wasn't there for the documentary. I had left Sony by then. So I'm just telling you, I know how that shit gets made, and I know they had one camera. And I know that it was, don't fucking lie to me because I hate that shit. All right. That's the show. Be well. Bye, you guys. I'm out. If I can figure out how to turn this fucking thing off. Maybe I press this button. It works.